And we're back with the wall tactics. Today, we're going to cover the data slate. We're going to go over each faction, but with an orc twist. We're going to discuss how these changes go into each orc matchup that we're going to have going forward. On Wednesdays, we always go over our actual rivals, our data, what's going on in the matchups, and I'm here to break it to you that orcs might be in for a rougher time than y'all might be expecting. So let's get stuck in, lads. Whoa! All right, boys. So we're going to start with some of the faction rules real quick. It's good for you guys to know. That way you know who's actually kind of durable, maybe more harder to deal with, what interactions are going to happen. So pay attention because we're going to break it down to why this matters for orcs and particularly. All right. So, Chris Tech Lord, shall you go first?
Yeah. So one thing to note this document, it includes the changes from the first one and the second one. The second one has a little plus sign. So we're just going to go over the plus signs. Any other ones might be red text, but not just new. So starting with sisters, the main big thing is a Triumph of St. Catherine. Only 2 dice you can do in one activation instead of unlimited. What that meant was you could have an Overwatch, you can do unlimited meltas, unlimited hits, unlimited wounds, and unlimited damage if they wanted to. It was crazy. Now they can only do 2 of those dice, so you're going to see less indirect, you're going to see less melta spam from sisters because it's not as consistent, which is great for our transports, great for our battle wagon, great for our knobs too, because you don't want knobs going in the charges and then just getting auto-deleted.
Yeah, then knowing that you're going to get hit automatic flamers, automatic meltas, whatever it may be, you're just like, oh, okay.
So this is a tech that kind of only works against their castle, but what I've noticed, I played a game of sisters recently after this data slate, they can still be very mobile, very cheap units. They got some points decreases, so you might not notice this change much in the matchups.
Yeah. Then we have Adeptus Custodes. So, David?
All right.
David reads better than me.
All right, so the biggest change here is the Emperor Detachment rule. Adeptus Custodes models within your army have a feel no pain 4-up against mortal wounds and now critical wounds caused by the attacks.
Now,
by devastating wounds ability.
Yeah, we know for orcs, that's not exactly what we were killing them with, but when Maz would get stuck in and you would roll those chomp of dev wounds when you really needed them, that definitely mattered in the matchup. Now you're not even going to have that swing. We know that in a prolonged fight with Custodes, they actually can take Maz down just by sheer volumes of attack and wounding kind of accurately. And Chris Stark?
Yeah, I think the big thing from this is that means you'll actually see Custodes cross through now. Because before, without this change, they weren't being brought up to any big tournaments. So now when you're prepping for tournaments, make sure to bring like units that are good against Custodes also, and don't just ignore the matchup as if it didn't exist.
That's not including the point changes they got, I believe, right? So just so you guys know, Custodes are back on the menu, and prior to them getting nerfed, Orcs had a 19% win rate into them, guys. So at the start of this edition, literally Custodes were running us over. They're fight first, they're reduced damage, their wardens getting feel no pains, they're awesome rerolls from their termies and wounds, their blast from their termies, having teleportation and double ingress if they do different the Venatari coming in, Trajan Valorous, all these different tools, having precision with their blade champion. All these different tools are perfect for the orc matchup. It destroys all of our damage too. The feel no pains means that when we throttle, they can tank it and then hit us back. Even one warden and a blade champion can destroy a whole knob unit sometimes. So this is just the beginning of when we talk about Custodes. Now we have the Eldari.
The Eldar. The big thing here, when they start the game off, they get half the amount of fate dice, which is huge because they can't just spam those after every phase, every little single roll. They actually have to think about their usage, and they might actually want to edit their list to include some of the units that can actually generate some of these for those. So they might have some battle line who can generate some on their home objectives. Think like Grots. Grots generate CP. Guardians generate fate dice for Eldar. They also have some characters that can generate some. And that's like the big thing. The other thing is the other brick was big was the
Phantasm. Wraithguard Phantasm brick. Pretty much unable for we're pretty much had an inability to interact with this unit unless it was melee and it charged into us and we fought in death, or we made long bomb charges with Here We Go and Follow Me Lads and making it across the board on them. Other than that, them being able to move whenever they really wanted to and not up to D6, it was just innately their movement. So now this makes a big difference. So that's going to matter for us. We might not even see Wraithguard at all in the menu, but what this means for the table is that brick of Wraithguard might turn into a bunch of small units, skirmishing units. So we got to pay attention to that, how that matchup might change with just more activations with Eldar. Plus that Night Spinner changing for 2 advance, 2 to charge. Right, that's what changed on it because it used to not allow you to advance. Now it's just -2, -2. just remember, Here We Go will counteract that, but you need to preemptively think about that as Here We Go happens in the command phase. So those are the two biggest ones, starting with Fate Dice, being able to move, and the Night Spinner. David?
Yeah, so I just want to add for the Phantasm Stratagem, the reason that matters so much is because now they can't guarantee to set up where they just move 5 inches in front of a wall and then move guaranteed 6 back. That's going to be a lot harder to set up. And then with the Night Spinner, I just wanted to point out that they didn't have that any charge modifiers before. So
Yeah.
You just couldn't charge.
yeah. Was
Or
it? You
couldn't
couldn't. No,
advance.
you couldn't.
Yeah, they
advance.
just
I'm
couldn't.
sorry.
Yeah, I said that, but
Yeah, so
for
now
sure.
they're essentially taking 6 inches away from your movement if that unit can advance and charge.
Yeah, for sure. And then we got Wicked Joe with the 5 gifted memberships. Whoa! Gifted Joe, always getting stuck in. Thank you. We appreciate you. Very generous. Always helping the rise of the green tide. So collect them badges, boys. Get swole. And then we got Jay Hoon. Let's go, wagon gang. Ooh. Yeah, today I just played with a wagon, and I loved it. And then it's funny because Maximo, I just want to say this. I used Beast Boss, and that's really good. So with that in mind, let's take a look at another one of these. There's Agents of the Imperium.
No changes from last time.
Yeah. Astra Militarum.
Yeah. So the big thing.
You want to read it?
Yeah. The only change is it's a slight change.
It's actually a good slight change.
Officers can do orders out of phase now, so they can do it out of transports and out of reserves. They weren't doing this too much because you saw a lot of guard lists were mechanized. So this doesn't affect the best unit, Kazarkan, who could order themselves. They can't order themselves because they're not officers. But you might see
they can order themselves on their data sheet capability.
Yeah, but not out of reserves or out of a transport.
No, but this still makes the difference when there is. What it actually matters is for Scions, is really what I was going to say. Because you can take a Tempesta Scion command squad, and then when you attach a unit to that, and then you get all the special abilities, there's like 8 special weapons from that unit. When you add a normal unit plus the Scion command squad, then you give them the orders, and they come off the table at that point. So then they're getting the Scion innate rerolls. They can get possibly 2 orders, I want to believe, and if not 1, then they're at least getting +1 to hit if they're not getting, first rank fire, second rank fire. So they can just end up putting ridiculous amount of damage. They have lethals, like I just said. So what I'm saying with guard was they're looking to do most likely, because they now know this, and the issue with them is they keep getting pushed into the backboard, is you're still going to see their infiltrators running up the table, taking the mid board. They're going to now know that their vehicles don't have to just wait in the back line. They can just bring them off freely and shoot down lanes, whatever they need to. So they're actually going to play the edges of the table more often than before and just try to gunk you up and take up all that space right at the beginning with Catachance for the most part is what I believe they'll be using. You might see, what's his name, Strachan in there. Sometimes they like to use him as a counter-charging unit, so be aware. And then, of course, they have their Gon's Ghost unit, which has snipers, infiltrating. It can do orders as well, so it can give itself orders. So you got to be aware of all these different units. Now they're getting orders and different activations. I believe they have there's ruling on their side, but their characters might be able to do it while it's not a transport. I believe it's an enhancement.
No, it's the transport itself lets the character issue an order if it's
yes,
there it
is. So it's very, really interesting. They were already a difficult matchup for us, and they are going to get somewhat, better at playing the game as a whole because of this. It just plays into more of their strengths and coming on and getting better angles of fire and not being interacted with when they don't want to sometimes with different units. Let's say you wanted a flash gets to go off on something. Now they can just be like, well, I'm scared. I'll come off later and get shots off on you, take angles, all that kind of stuff. So Astra Militarum get a little tougher. And then we have demons. David, I know you want to. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I was flipping that and just Blood's David's like,
so
Blood Angels is important. It is.
Yeah. So the one big change, Blood Angels on the charge instead of +1 strength, it's +2, which is huge because they have a boatload of power fists, boatload of hammers, getting you to critical strength 10, which means you're wounding us on 2s a lot more often than before. And
remember, the chain swords now go off. So if they're using cheap garbage skirmish chain swords, you would normally be like, I don't care, you guys are winning me on 4, 5s. Now they're winning you on 3s when they get off on you. So you have to be aware of even their skirmishing has now become better. If you play them in your local meta, just be aware they could come out of nowhere and actually do better. But I still think the fight and death just swings that too hard in our favor. Then we have Chaos Demons.
All right, and this one we got to change to the Demonic Pact rule, which doesn't directly affect demons, mono demons themselves. It affects more of the allies for Chaos Space Marines, Thousand Suns, Death Guard. Even though Death Guard is very minimal because
World Leaders.
Christian play World Leaders. He's like, oh, my brigands.
That helps. That doesn't affect the brigands, but that affects the demon allies.
Yeah.
Skirmish units.
But yeah, sure, them too.
What the change is you have to match the number of non-battle line units to battle line units, meaning you can't just like for world leaders, you can't just bring that one unit of blood crushers.
Yeah, it's the only thing I wish like Nurglings weren't battle line because it would actually punch people.
They're super annoying. Yeah,
because Nurglings are the best allies, but they're battle lines. So
and they're super annoying for and they're super annoying for orcs in particularly because Nurglings are cheap enough to just get in the lanes and the enemies don't care, and they're giving -1 to hit, which is an issue. And Death Guard is already one of our hard matchups, so that's one of their tools that makes them a harder matchup because then they wouldn't be able so easily stack -1 weapon skill, -1 ballistic skill. So anyways, we're going on a tangent when we talk about that, but Chaos Space Marines is the next one we all want to talk about.
Just one more thing. This will also affect Thousand Suns because they love to take those low knob characters. Now they can't.
Which I don't mind seeing that go.
Yeah, of course. So then Chaos Marines, one of the actual factions at the top tables that could just blow us off the table. We were actually teching into them. That's where the double scalpel, small 5-man units with the war boss come into play, so they can actually go into Chosens and such like that. So now that that's gone, we'll see if Space Marines can retain us wanting to keep that tool on our toolkit. And we'll show lists at the end, a couple examples that I have that we're going to go over. So we have all this in mind. It's going to be good. So let's go over the Chaos Marines real quick.
Yeah. So this changes basically all directly affect their top list, which were the Rhinos. So you couldn't hit the Chosen. So the Chosen would be undivided. The Rhino would be Nurgle, which means you can't shoot the Nurgle outside of 12. Then the Chosen will get free walk-in, free charges. Now the Nurgle has to be the same on the Chosen and the Rhino, and they only get 18-inch deny shooting. So it's a worse loan up, and they get worse melee damage if they want to use that combo. Another issue is their strat Profane Zeal, which is obnoxious. 4 rolls a hit and wounds, 1 TP. Now it's just reroll wounds, and the only thing it can only be used on Chaos Undivided. So what that means is that unit will still have reroll 1s to hit and reroll 1s all to wound because Undivided Mark gives them reroll 1s to hit. So it's not too nerfed. It is limited on what can use it, but it means you won't have every single unit they have just giving a bunch of rerolls. And the other big thing is the Accursed Cultist, which you see those spam because they're crazy for OC. It's like having Grots that just wouldn't die and come back. Now they're only OC1, and they only come back during 1 command phase instead of 2 every turn. So it limits their durability and limits their effect on the battlefield because they're not just out OCing everything on the board.
And the Dark Commune did take a points increase too. So these guys, we'll just say Chaos Space Marines got a hard enough hit that we are not going to tech into them. Enough of our tech pieces are going to go into other matchups that you should be able to deal with Chaos Space Marines. So that's just one thing off our table, but we have a couple other things on our table.
Yeah, for them, you'll just see a lot more Abaddon is what I feel like. Yeah. People are taking them out. I think he'll just kind of slide right back in.
Yep. And then we have like those shooting vehicle, little spiders, what are they called? And they'll have a bunch of different things like that. So it'll still be in our favor. We'll still have too many pieces because Abaddon's very expensive in his bubble, but be weary. So
no changes to Death Guard.
So Death Guard,
actually, I forgot
with Mortarion changed is became more clear as well. But that's not on here. That's not on here. But yeah, that's no changes. But we have to talk about that too. There was a change, is my point.
But the one change is the stratagem for grenade. They would have 3 guys use grenades the same turn. Now only 1 character can use their ability once per turn. So they can't just spam you with triple grenades in 1 shooting phase.
And that does matter. You're trying to throw free grenades into Maz or Squig Hog Boys or Knobs or Mega Knobs. You know, anything that you can freely kill orcs from by putting mortals through or anybody you're going into, that matters. So some people might argue, oh, who cares? We're already killing you. No, that matters. We have Gene Stealer Cult.
No changes.
Oh, Grey Knights.
Yes, Grey Knights.
Yeah.
Grey Knights, their whole issue before was their whole army was 622 in melee, and they did 5 gifted memberships.
5 gifted memberships from WAAAGH. Whoa, let's go, WAAAGH. Okay, and I just noticed I was covering the Grey Knights. So, that being said, there we go.
Yeah, so Grey Knights. Big change is their vehicles, their actual walkers or dreadnoughts, actually don't just tickle you now. They actually can shoot you with their side cannon, which went from 10-1-3 to 10-2-3 ignores cover, which means they can actually tackle some stuff with shooting now.
Yeah. That's actually threatens Squig Hog Boys now when you're just trying to chip them away at them and hurt them. It's super annoying for 3 damage flat. Mega Knobs don't like to see that either, taking up to 4-up saves.
Yeah, and those guys,
very annoying.
They auto move 14 because they advance for auto 6, and they can advance and charge, advance and shoot, fall back and shoot, fall back and charge. So those guys actually might see some play in some list. They also got +1 to hit and melee for all their weapons, so they're not just as swingy. So those are actually like good anti-tank threats now. The army isn't just relying on Terminators to just spam armor contempt every single phase, every single turn.
Yeah, for sure. And they're hoping for librarians to do everything.
Yeah.
Hoping librarians, please pop this for
Yeah,
me.
just
I
no
can't kill anything with armor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we have Drakari, Christian's army. He loves this.
I have it. They're not my first.
We'll go
one.
over their actual detachment rolls when we go over their points, probably a little bit more.
Yeah. So the big thing here is they got a melee boost. So now they actually do increase AP when you empower them, which is okay. The problem with Drakari is they have no staying power. So the second you look at them, you breathe on them, even with some just grot pistols, they still fall.
Yeah. Let's go. All right. And then we have the Imperial Knights.
Yeah. So Knights.
Oh, before that, we got.
Ooh, 5 more memberships from the Fighting Fedora. I love that name.
So we have the Fighting Fedora. Whoa, with 5 gifted memberships. Let's go. Let's get stuck in. Thank you. Very generous of you, lads. Let's do this. Super excited about all of these. And I'd like for you, and you guys of shorts, we're going to intermediately, after we go, just look at the chats and read all of them. So say what you want to say, disagree, agree, make some points. We're going to say it because if you didn't say it, someone else that's going to see the video later will say it and have the same question or comment. So say it now. That way the whole Ork community can hear what everybody has to say, because I love to argue with you. All right. So.
All right, so a big change for them is the army rule: lay low the tyrant.
Yeah, they just made it an innate rule what they already thought they had, right? I mean,
so each time the model selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit roll and you can reroll 1 wound roll.
So they got the Eldar treatment detachment.
Yeah, that's fine. Then we'll go into them more later when we talk about their points. Space Wolves, you know.
David, does this change your opinion on
Space
Space detachment at all?
You guys can find out exactly what they do, but really they're just worse version of Black Templars.
Yeah, this really didn't change much for me. These are still hard to accomplish in the game, and you're really just putting yourself out of position to score these, which really aren't worth it, especially because some armies just get these abilities for free.
So,
but
for Orks, we don't care about this matchup. You know, whatever is points, but Orks, we don't care about this as their matchup necessarily.
Yeah, Space Wolves
to Wolfen.
Yes, I did, but I figured we'll.
Yeah,
I mean, Wolfen are like swole space or boys, I guess, right? So then we have World Eaters, Chris Tech. Let's go.
Yeah, so they got consistency nerfs. So their Berserker Glaive guy, Eddie's favorite character,
Master of Indirect Combat is what I called him.
Just for him, but it basically took his damage now. Instead of being 3 to 5, it's just flat 3. Also takes off 2 attacks, so he's only 7 attacks instead of up to 9. Really lays down his potential potency. Their enhancement, which was reused to bring back Angram potentially every turn, instead of being once per round, it's once per battle.
I think that was a little excessive. I didn't think they needed to put that. I didn't think they needed that rule to do that to them, to be honest. I know Angron's super annoying, and I know us Orks personally, that makes a huge difference, because sometimes Angron just getting back up and us running out of the tools to kill him does matter, and he might fight on death when he comes back as well. So that does matter for our matchups a lot, really a lot. Not just the points increases, but I mean, even when they switch into playing for their Angron matchup, this enhancement changing alone makes that Angron matchup just like still not in their favor. They're still having a very hard time pretty much. I don't want to be rude to World Eaters players, but y'all getting dogged after this change.
And the last change was, I actually like the Demon Prince. It was an aura of 4-up invuln.
I didn't like that they changed this, to be honest. Unless I missed something broken, but with all the point increases and everything else they didn't need to do this.
So what it means is Jackals, they're cultists, and their Berserkers, instead of being a 4-up invuln, those 2 different unit types got a 5-up invuln.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's already like over 200 points. I think it was fine.
It's
a change.
It's
a random change. What it is.
Yeah, it's silly. And then we have Leagues of Voltan, no changes for their rules, and then Space Marines, no changes for that. So from here we're going to the points. Or do you want to go into the rules? Because like we said, we're going to go over some of the rules.
Where's
anything change?
The ones that had the changes to the index sheets. That's what we needed to get. You can do index sheet changes, but we can go back to that. I think points is what we should go over next.
We should go over points next. I'll look at chats real quick while Christian looks at some of the points and mentions sisters. And so the sisters with their changes, make sure you guys have anything to say. We got this up. Okay. Christian?
Yeah. So the big thing with sisters, the 3-man units, more of involved, the Archoflagellants and the Exorcist, all got points increases. The Exorcist was indirect. That thing's crazy. It's strength 10 -2 d6 damage indirect, and it was heavy, so it was never -1 to hit.
And we care greatly about indirect. Anything that can pick us up where we don't want to get picked up, where we're staging our home objective, if we're scared Grass will get killed for some reason in a silly way, chipping down knobs, all type of chipping down flash skits, right? Sometimes you'll say, hey, you're going to pop my transport. I'm going to disembark behind here and then move. No, I'll now start hit you while you're trying to hide as well. Sometimes people will run out of the ability to have line of sight on your flash skits once they've disembarked you and not have enough guns left. Well, that makes up for that too. So all of a sudden they're killing units that you don't want to be killed that are, trying to set up. So Exorcist going away and them getting replaced most likely with, what's the version of the tanks? Their little version of tanks. I'm having a brain. The Castigator, yeah, which are still pretty dope versus Orks that have flat 3 damage, battle cannon type weapons and such. But an Exorcist was much more devastating into the Ork matchup. So were Arcoflagellants. They were putting so many volume of punches into everybody.
They're 6 attacks, 501, twin linked, and you run 10 of those. So 60 attacks with twin linked is pretty crazy. And Sisters have a strat where they can also fight on death. So they can have all those guys fight on death if you charge them. So they can wipe out a whole unit of boys, maybe even some knobs if they get lucky.
Oh, for sure. And where people want to run the knob with Wallbanner, Beast Snaggle Boys, all these different kind of mobs. Maybe you're looking to kill a Catan, Twink, and all these different things that are going on. You would hate to see Hardcore Flagellants running off and lining up against you. Now we have Morgan Fall. Sure, she went down, but it doesn't really matter because her squad went up because her squad went down for the Paragon War Suits.
Evened out, so
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Combo didn't change.
But when you're talking about the Repentia, the Retributors, and the Seraphim, you might see more of these, but I'm not sure if it swings the combat for how the game's going to go for us, other than the Repentia coming in at cheap enough to maybe get a skirmish off on you. But in the matchup, this is not going to change how Scissors are going to play into us enough that it's going to swing, in my opinion, the percentage-wise. Even as we change our tech pieces, maybe, let's say we add more kill rigs or you start running gas and all these different kind of stuff to counter what the new meta is, it's not going to mess this matchup up, most likely.
Yeah, I think the one thing this does is it makes them bring some more units, and I played Sisters, and they can have up to like 20 deployments. It's actually crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
Because of the amount of just cheap units.
Cheap power armor all over the place. Yeah. So you need, if we go too elite, you might run out of activations to deal with them, so there is that. Now, will it change the percentage? I don't. But these guys, I think this is going to change the percentage and matchup. But let me look at the chats real quick while I have this up, because I want you guys to agree with me or argue with me about how you feel about the Custodes. Can we get a whoa from Jack Thacker? Of course, we got Wapo again with the whoa, the dark. Or Commissar, of course, the Revolution. Let's go, boys. Yeah, Wapo, you guys make sure you use those squig badges and the Mega Knobs and Gaz, because I feel like Gaz is going to be important now. We have my new list trades, trucks for Battle Wagon, plus the Kill Rig with the Pain Boss, and a Squigoth full of burners. All right, the Squigoth is an interesting tech piece. Throwing him in there all of a sudden as a different kind of T10 transport. He is pretty cheap for being a T10 transport.
How much is he?
I think like 150. I think he's 150. Yeah, he's like a hunter rig. He's his own weird thing, but having burners on it does make the difference when he gets stuck. You know what I'm saying? And he can actually art his nails instead of the hunter rig too. So that's pretty awesome. I do think the Battle Wagon is going to get some pretty good play, pretty consistent play. The Kill Rig, that's going to be your meta dependent. Of course, I know about the fun combos you can do for giving additional strength, trying to pop lethals off on here, the different stuff that can end up in your kill rigs, the auto hitting las cannon, essentially. All that stuff's really good. Will it be at the top table of GTs? Probably not, but at RTT levels, league levels, you can bully, you can have great games. So I'm never going to talk down on the kill rig because I'm enjoying them for sure. Coastals are a good matchup. They are the elite in combat. I don't know, you mean like a hard matchup? Oh, aren't. Yeah. No, yeah, they are not a good matchup. They are very difficult, and we're going to go over that right now for a bunch of different reasons. As for why I'm going to need those techs is to try. Whoa! Let's get crumping. Make sure you guys collect those badges too, because they've been getting gifted. So you're sitting in here, DDP, and all these different little gits with your Umi type badge names and not marked names. I see you, and y'all looking pretty pink to me. No boys allowed for the Fighting Fedora. I was on the fence about killer cans, but they definitely aren't showing up for the Revolution. But they're definitely showing up. Oh, they are. Oh, okay, that's awesome. Yeah, well, 125 points is kind of where you can kind of see them at. I would still want them a little lower. So yeah, get your little pink Umi selves collecting them badges. Now, let's rant about the Custodes, because these boys are someone that we're gonna have to be very vigilant about. So last week we seen it was about a 47% win rate for Custodes into Orks. As in we had a 47% rate. I think this is going to get more difficult. So, Chris,
you think it's going to go to like a 40%, or what are you thinking?
Oh, yeah. I would say probably I could see it going down to a 40%. On the casual level, the things you have to do, or even intermediate level, are really going to be hard to pull off. On tagging the characters to pull them away from the units you want to fight, right? Going to the back part of the unit so that you can pull the character away from you. I might have to do some actual videos about that. And as a whole, custodes with their durability, how people are playing fixed. They're going to meet you in the center. It could be a hard counter if you're playing a fixed army too. What happened?
Yeah, I think one thing to note too is now -1 to wound back to not working on Trajan again. That's probably going to come up because there was that one little brief period where he wouldn't affect the dice modifier. So -1 to wound would actually affect Trajan's unit, but now he actually ignores that again. So
that's another huge thing.
Isn't as good against Custodes
as
it was the last couple months.
Yeah, Maz falls down even quicker in that matchup. Some reason why I mentioned Maz isn't to kill them, but to kind of slow them down while you try to dismantle the rest of their army. The issue here becomes that they start advancing and charging you with momentum across the table, and now their units got even cheaper, as in the Custodians, the Wardens, the Alaris. Nobody cares about the bikes that much, but maybe they will. And that becomes more board control for them to bring their grav tanks, to bring units that can do secondaries, and them to consistently keep pressuring in you. Even if you devastate their unit down to a couple models, it can still chop through the rest of your army and continue to score. You gonna say something, Chris?
No, I think that's good. I mean, the only issue that I've had with the army is why are bikes lower toughness than Terminators? Like,
oh my god. Also, you have to keep in mind the Wardens mixed with the Blade Champion. You know, that's a devastating matchup to have. The 4-up Feel No Pain when you're trying to go into them and reducing damage is huge. One tech piece that I'm trying to look into and bring into this is having gas for the lethal, also having a stupid amount of volume of damage 1 from Beast Snagger Boys on the wall, getting up to strength 6. If somehow you can get, of course, the flashes close enough to Alari, you can get them down to T6 as well, which matters when you're trying to wound these guys on 4s. At that point, when you're doing criticals, 5s from Unbridled Carnage, you can get lethal sustained on 5s from a huge unit of Beast Snagger Boys. And at that point, hitting on 2s, of course, they can make you -1 to hit if they choose to, but Custodian players seem to tend to lean more into damage into us when they're in the heat of the moment. So in that case, you might be hitting on 2s, hitting on 3s, whatever it may be. Point is, you can end up putting 40, even more kind of a silly amount of wounds into these guys, and that could swing, not have to deal with the fact that they have the reduced damage. They do not have an Armor of Contempt, so they really just have to take all these dice, and you drown them in dice of 3-up armor saves. That's always the best way to deal with something when you're an Orc.
I just want to say, the more I see Orcs on the table, the more I feel like, yes, almost looks mandatory with his lethal aura. It just seems crazy good in this meta of a lot of tough units.
And people don't believe me and will argue with me about it. It feels anti-Orky sometimes to bring something so expensive. All these different kind of arguments I hear, and I definitely hear you, but I need you to play games popping Unbridled Carnage and lethal when you're near a unit of 20 or these different kind of boys, and you're going into these different profiles, right? Or knobs into something that might actually bounce. A lot of times I hear people thinking knobs will kill things that they're not going to reliably. Like, you could definitely whiff against a war dog with knobs and a war boss.
Is that from personal experience?
Yeah, from personal experience several times. So it's you just really don't know how that's gonna go when you're wounding something on 5s and you're hitting on 3s, you know, even with the war boss. So
yeah.
I promise you, getting lethal into something that you would traditionally wound on 5s makes a devastating difference. So it would never let you down, and custodes are one of the reasons I'm leaning into gas more and more. But these grav cannons make me worried about, the Palladius grav tanks make me worry about battle wagons. They're just too reliable into popping them, and then with a double rapid ingress coming down and blasting away that unit with the termies. You know, so they definitely have the firepower for there. So it's still difficult, guys. I'm just bringing up these points that, you know, you're going to have to take that into consideration. And yeah, custodes are going to be something that we're going to have to figure out as a community how to trick and pick up. But it's going to take practice reps, and we're going to try to figure that out. We definitely have tools, and I think gas is definitely going to end up being one of them. Now, the question is gas or Maz or both, right? So I definitely want to hear what you guys got to think about them. I've been having games with both now that I think about it. And even though it sounds outrageous, it kind of works. One's the hammer, one's the anvil. And because Gaz doesn't have to be himself the hammer, it works even better because he's projecting a hammer, which turns into a giant sledgehammer, you know, because it destroys a whole flank.
Yeah, as a non-orc player, when I close my eyes and think of orcs, I start my list: Maz, Gas, 10 flash, gives 10 knobs, and then I fill in the rest from there because those units feel like the core of all orc lists.
Yeah, I'm still of the mind of bringing 10 knobs in one unit with the war boss. I know people will argue. I think the 5 knobs in the war boss was an awesome tech piece when you're going into CSM and Space Marines. I still think it could be a very useful tech piece, but you start running around into Tyranids into that. Small Tyranid monsters will tank that. And then just slap you back pretty reliably. They'll overwatch you, maybe with some flamers and reduce that unit so they can survive. You're not getting good trades out of there unless it's power armor stuff that's wanting to get hit with 2 damage. And, you know, Custodes, you'll just give them something to kill without reliably getting something good to find death with. So you need a 10-man unit for that, and it gives you more ability to reach Gaz's lethal. That's another reason why I choose to bring it. If you want more, we're going to show lists that have more knobs than just 10, 20-man knob units. That's fine, because I still think knobs are going to be one of the best ways to play. So that's enough for Custodes for now, I think, and we'll talk about them more if you guys want when we bring it up in chat. David, how do you feel about your Adeptus Mechanicus? David owns this army. When we went to LVO, he actually ran it. So even though he's not loving this, he knows all about it. How do you feel about your boys? Just a quick synopsis. I know you haven't played them that much yet, but what do you think about why they're existing?
Well, as we can see, no changes in the points, which makes me a little sad, because there's obviously good units that you want to take. So it kind of forces you into a specific style. And even the best version of AdMech right now with the Hunter cohort is not really a threat to Orks. So there's not really much to say there. They're a high skill army, and most people aren't going to find success with that play style. And
they're expensive to collect. Trying to figure them out is expensive on its own and a lot of time. So how they're into you, each person will give you a different opinion. Some people say they're trash. Some people say they're awesome and can be figured out. Sure, but they're not in the meta significantly enough or showing up in the numbers to tech into. You're just going to have to kind of deal with them and pick them as you do and play the mission as it goes. You can know them and figure them out a bit, but you're not going to tech them. What's happened?
As someone who's played a lot of 10th edition games, I've still yet to see AdMech in the local meta.
Yeah,
it's just super uncommon right now, I feel like.
But what you do see a lot is Eldar. So Chris, what do you want to say about Eldar with these couple changes? Pretty much just to these 2 units on top of compounding with the rule changes that we spoke about earlier, and how that goes into the Orks and why we care so much.
Yeah, so the biggest thing with Orks is the Yin card. Now she cannot teleport on the Ork's turn. So it means she can't run away from you. So it actually gives you a chance to pick her away. So the Elder player has to be smart with what they do with her. And this combined with the indirect nerf means you're going to see less Night Spinners, which means you're going to be less teleporting from the Yin card, which means Knights. And with the stratagem change, it's going to actually be more reliable to charge where you want to charge on the turn of the WAAAGH, so that you aren't just sitting there in the middle of the open field with no target. You can't just make those charges. So it's going to be more reliable matchup for sure, less tricky.
Storm Boys matter a lot in there. Flash Gits matter a lot in this matchup. Flash Gits are going to matter a lot in every matchup going forward. Every matchup, in my opinion, is going. You're going to
Overwatch 1-1 models.
You're going to appreciate Flash Gits on every matchup you have if you're playing them in accordance, saving CP to Overwatch, placing them somewhere where maybe they can remain stationary and look at 2 different objectives, or look at the sides of the table where the enemy wants to come in. You can punish shooting armies for trying to take positions on you. You can countercharge, you can reduce people's toughness, and you can throttle away some different kind of T11 monsters or vehicles that the enemy will not be expecting you to do. Soul Grinders, Katans, Tyranid monsters, all these different kind of things. You can go out and touch them at range and destroy them, right? So very devastating. Flash Gits are very important in my opinion. Can you play without them and have success? Of course you can. But when you start getting to higher level tables, I think you're going to need them as people start to figure out what these matchups are going to rely on and need, and the different tools all these different factions are going to bring. If you're going into Eldar, Tau, you're going to appreciate being able to overwatch these dorks when they're trying to take firing lanes on you or countercharging on you, pop in their transports, all these different things you're going to appreciate doing. So Flash Gits are going to be important, and I think in this matchup, as they break down into smaller units, which is what Eldar is going to do in my opinion, Flash Gits will matter more. So
yeah, I think the one big rule change that really affects Flash Gits is if you come from reserve in the truck, you can guarantee to get out now as long as you stay 9 inches away. So there was that little like gray zone, but now it's cleared up. Really nice if you're one of those guys who likes to reserve a unit of Flash Gits, so you can get good firing lanes like Eddie mentioned, so you always have something to shoot at.
At least one activation always in the game where you can pop lethal in that turn. You might get overwatched, of course, but you do need to keep that in mind. Then we have Jehoon. I'm glad they didn't touch my boy Death Killer Warpoint bike in the point changes. I said the point. Whoa, yeah, for sure. I'm glad he didn't get changed. He's at the perfect point value right now. Nothing about that was oppressive. I felt really good about how the Orks got their points changed. I just think our matchups and difficult matchups are going to be important. David's tired about burp. Sorry.
Oh, Wicked Joe, I'll see some of your gets at Adepticon.
Whoa, you'll definitely see us, boy. I'll be at Adepticon. You guys want to get some games with me? I'll be there just playing open play with you guys. I didn't end up joining just because I wanted to do some other things and communicate with everybody. So hit me up and we'll do get drinks or whatever we got to do after. So then he said, Wappa's kill shot, but don't work so good into the golden gets. Yeah, it definitely does not, especially now. You still kind of want it as a tech piece for other factions that you're going to go into, but now it becomes who are you putting that on? And to me, the beast boss on Squiggles right now. And remember, I've been the boy who've always said put it on the non-bounce magic with Edwappa's skill chop on the Squigs. I'm totally down for dropping Squigs from my list now. Not in all matchups would I advise that, but in all metas. But I'm personally dropping them, which means Edwappa's either ends up on the beast boss and Squiggle store, or he just sometimes doesn't even make it on my list. Chris, do you disagree? What's going on? Now you got something to say, boy.
Yeah. My whole thing is I don't know if the second beast boss Squiggle sword is necessary outside of Maz. But if you are going to bring up, I think the head up skill chop is definitely
I like cans for the rockets. It's a nice budget option for the grot tanks. Yeah, I can see why you like that, especially ignoring cover with them. That would be really cool. I do worry about their OC and their leadership and their low movement. They're a problem when you have your Tyranid matchup, in my opinion, where they're not going to pull their points at all, and that's one of our hard matchups. So I think about that when I think about them, but they do other things really good. I love cans, hoping they get Canoptic Wraith treatment for a Dread War. Big Mech and Mega Armor leading them sounds so fun. Oh, I didn't even think about it. Killicans that's true, dude. Or if the Big Mech and Mega Armor gives them a 4-up invuln, then I'm kind of here for it. Then you can take good armor saves and you can get a great invuln on them. Then I'm here for it. So I didn't even think about that. That would be a really cool tech piece. Okay, so before I keep reading some more of the chats, let me move from this Wraith Guard matchup. And just keep in mind that, like we said about the Night Spinners, if you're going to deal with that, they're probably only going to bring one for the crazy point cost, in my opinion. Do you think they'll bring two still? I think one just for teching against an army, right? If they bring one, just keep in mind that they're going to chip away maybe a couple of your boys. You don't have to pop Ardenelles when they shoot at them, but you are going to want to pop Here We Go to counteract their -2/-2. Just make it completely gone. But hey, you still get to advance and charge now. So we actually have something to counter that, unlike a lot of other factions. So be happy. Do not be weary, my boys. So what is this? Oh, just more of their models. Yeah. Well, go away. Agents of Imperium, haha. Astra Militarum. So the point changes wasn't much, but I still just want to keep in mind and go over what kind of units we're gonna have to go around here. I want to call out a couple data sheets that I think you're gonna have to be aware of, what they could possibly do, because these guys are gonna be another one of our tough matchups. As a whole, between Custodes, Tyranids, maybe Death Guard, Astra Militarum, Leagues of Voltan, we just got a different kind of basket of problems, and the interesting part is that they actually operate in different ways in the game. So it is an interesting problem for us to meet, not to mention Necrons, right? That's just a whole nother bag of problems. So then we'll get there. So with Astra Militarum, we have the Manticore. From what I understand, the Manticore was already falling out of favor, didn't have enough shots for its point value. Someone hypothetically could bring an entire mortar pit and give them orders, which would suck for us, but hey, whatever, because guard has access to lethal and we hate that. As for what they're more likely to have, they're more likely to use, I believe, it's not the Riven, I believe it's the Basilisk, right? And the Basilisk actually give you reduction in, what was it? Is it mobility or advanced? I think it's mobility reduction. Some kind of mobility reduction. They able to pull it up real quick. I just gave them up again. Another thing to keep in mind are the Bullgrins. When we were discussing a unit that has damage reduction, we're talking about a unit that has damage reduction and can withstand the Orks onslaught. A bunch of redundant Bullgrin slab walls is another very good tech piece. If they start dropping these into the middle of the table, then using their catachans to play the edge and push you away, there's very much coming on the lines of it's coming off the edge of the tables, holding the middle of the table to do their secondaries, and then able to shoot down the lanes at you. So Bullgrin might be a very interesting setup piece. And what is the Basilisk?
The Basilisk now reads the exact same role as a Night Spinner, so -2 to move, -2 to advance.
Goddamn, that's fantastic. Also keep in mind you have the Hellhound. Something that we might pay attention to a little. Here's Iron Hand Strachan as their counter-charging unit. So if one of those catachans does get in there, there's a chance he can mess you up as well. So
I'm surprised Lord Solar didn't get a points increase because he feels like an auto include.
He is an auto include, but guard aren't doing good enough, in my opinion, to get any kind of increases. I would have actually liked to see the Basilisk go up too. Other than that, they didn't really need to. So the main units, in my opinion, to look out for will be some Pestis Scions coming in from reserves with orders. If they have a command squad in that unit and a Scion, the command squad attached to a Scion unit, that alone is an outrageous missile that you will want to screen out. Another thing that will be something to keep in mind is when they do come to take board presence from you with their Catachans in your local meta, they're looking to do that because they're trying to do secondaries in the middle of the table and just keep you off them. So you're going to need to bring either volume of punches to one-shot these entire units. Hope that if they fail battle shock, they cannot get regened and brought back, of course, because that's what the new ruling on that was.
Yeah, honestly, I just have a question before you get in chat. How are you guys feeling about fixed versus tactical secondaries?
True.
I've been leaning more towards fixed because I feel like it's easier to plan around it, but it's hard to want to just toss away that CP. But as Orks, we can get that CP with our rots.
I didn't.
I just wondering how much you guys are feeling towards. Yeah, he's like 0 for 6 in his last rolls.
Yeah.
But I think fix is. I'm leaning more towards fix after playing the game more and more.
And honestly, me too. And I've been one that was great for tactical. It just feels like you have more control, and Orks are one of those factions that actually has a lot of leftover pieces.
A lot of action.
And the enemy starts looking around like, shoot, do I kill the stuff that's killing me, or do I kill the action monkeys? And then they're throwing it in the basket. And as soon as they fail to kill your action monkey, and then you still have the thing to kill it alive, it becomes a downhill slope for the enemy. So
yeah, we just played a game where Maz.
Whoa, we're going to that later. All right, so we have and just to keep in mind for that, so they're still gonna have great indirect, they're still gonna have great infiltration, they're gonna come off the table edge with nasty volume of fire. So shock jump drags does, trike moving up the table quickly, your own infiltrators like Mandos, scouting and such like that. So we'll talk about Mandos, we'll talk about how we're going to use these things. Just keep in mind when we're going at these matchups why I have these units on the list that I present to you, and I'll tell you why I'm presenting them. And Commandos are actually one of those units that I am bringing for that reason. I refuse to allow guard to walk into the middle of the table with that much stuff and come off on the table edges and shoot me twice and have me run into that many guys. You're not going to have anything left, and they're going to just be able to play the mission and get 100 points on you, which is what they plan to do when they do that. They're one of the armies between lethal and volume that they can pick up everything too quickly. So, and like I said, the Bullgrin are dumb enough to be annoying too. So Black Templars, Christek, how do you feel about this?
Well, a lot of people have been saying that Black Templars are like the best way to play Space Marine. So these changes, coupled with the regular Space Marine changes, cut off about like 100, 120 points from most meta lists. So that's significant. It's like a whole squad. And when you look at a Space Marine list, it's hard to decide what you want to cut from the squads because you have a lot of cheap 65, 75, but that would mean cutting 2 squads, or you'd have to take one big 120 point break out of it, which would be like 3 Inceptors, which is they're crucial to most lists.
And be sure to give your opinions, your comments, responses, what you're worried about. If we go over a faction you want to hear counters for, or what our opinions are about it, or data sheets, I'm going to look at them. We just go over a couple factions and I look at them. So yeah, as for Black Templar, did this change the matchup enough, in my opinion, to swing it in Orcs' favor? I still think yes.
Changes too much.
I still think yes, because they still took the changes to their other data sheets too for being just straight Space Marines.
That's what I'm saying though. Even with that changes, they're only cutting out 1 unit of Inceptors. And do you think losing 1 Inceptor unit against the Black Templars is enough to swing it?
I think our natural tech pieces are still going to work in favor against them. And so I do think that actually is enough to swing it, because we were already on the fence almost 50-50 at times. But it depends on the type of the skill of the player. So we'll have to see about that. But it also depends on the detachment. I was going to say too, because yeah,
you see a lot more Gladius right now.
I was going to say, I think Gladius is the most likely play to play them. We were talking about Ironstorm before because of all the free Meltas and such like that. No, having the ridiculous amount of bodies on the table for Space Marines that are so reliable with their wounding capability and combined force of arms means that Gladius is the way to go. That way you can get the advance and charging, the moving, falling back, and everything that you need to be a flexible Space Marine army. But even losing 1 unit, yeah, I think that messes them up. And you know, every time you kill one of their scout units or anything that comes up, it's more better trade for us too, which hurts them as well anyways. So no, I think that matters a little bit, but this will knock it up to 50-50 probably, like a real true 50-50 between everything that changed. Yeah, because then you're going to be playing with more infantry maybe and less Quick-Hog boys, and I think that kind of actually wins it in our favor in that point, because then the Quick-Hog boys aren't necessarily helpful as they get shot up in this kind of Space Marine matchup usually when they're staging. Blood Angels, they didn't change. They should have changed for the Sanguinary Guard. Oh well. I'm going to leave these up here, but let me check chat real quick at this point, see what you guys got to say, because I got to argue with you or fight. Let's see. I'm going to say Rockets. I was reading you guys say. Chris?
If you have good movement, stay on one side of the battlefield and pick off weak units and fight for the center. I think that's a great way because a lot of thing is a lot of armies just have a couple tech pieces to get secondaries, and if you take away those units that can't do secondaries, suddenly they have to choose with their big 150 point, 200 point unit. Do I want to do action or do I want to fight?
That's definitely one of the best ways to deal with Space Marines. You dissect them, you pick them apart limb from limb. You try to avoid maybe their bricks or slow them down. That's where Maz becomes a huge factor because Space Marines don't have a great way to immediately pick him up. So their Death Star, whatever it is, you slow them down with that, or Squig Hog Boys, anything like that, and then you kill everything else. So when you do kill their scouts or anything infiltrating in that sense too, it ends up paying you off long-term inceptors as well. That's why I think even losing one unit or diminishing the value of some of their units matters so greatly in that matchup. Because I think when Space Marine, as soon as I think of Space Marines, I'm like, how many dudes do you got to actually play the game? I'll just kill them, and then you're stuck fighting me with elite stuff, and then I still have enough stuff to kill you anyways. I put 49 power claws into a Redemptor Dreadnought. I did 2 damage. Yes, did you do it with Gaz and Lethal? And even then, that's not who I choose to put my, shots of a Redemptor Dreadnought into, and you also probably rolled horridly, so that's terrible. It's all about the Maws, of course, for the Wicked Joe would say that. Are Beast Nuggets the best option to take down vehicles?
I'd say they're the best option for Catan.
So if you mean Beast Snagga Boys or just the Beast Snagga line, and the answer to that, both of those questions is yes. They are so they do both. They're the best line of models between the Squig Hog Boys, the Beast Boss, Maz, Beast Boss and Squiggles with Ed Wappa's Kill Choppa. As for Beast Snagga Boys, in my opinion, that greatly depends on if you have a Beast Boss in the unit and if Gaz is near you. We'll talk about that combo as soon as we get to Necrons, but Beast Snagga Boys can destroy almost anything when they're near Gaz. And we'll talk about that. Squig Boys on knobs. Yeah, with a Squig. Okay, you guys are still into Squigs. I'm really happy that you guys are still into Squigs and you guys aren't mad about it. Save Master, I see you too. Why did the chicken cross the road? To cross the wall and get his teeth knocked out. Whoa! I hate the Bulgren before it was cool. Yes, you did, and it was very much worth it, right? So, you know what messes up Bulgrens, though? Beast Snagga Boys with Lethal. No. Okay, let's see. I've been dying to combine. Oh, dude, you have to try that. I've done it every game since. I did it with normal boys, and today I did it with Beast Snagga Boys. It was obnoxious. I've done it with knobs. It's obnoxious. Do it with flash kits. It's obnoxious.
It's the best combo in the book.
Yeah, you just clear that whole side of the battlefield because you're like, Makari, go over here. Fixed since who buys Leviathan cards? Sean Naden, right? Exactly. And he was right because I've been using Fixed more often, and it's been played off the last 2 games that I played with it as well. So it was like greatly. So I played last weekend. I played GT, and I played better when I used Fixed. Yes,
Which
I agree.
one did you take?
Yeah,
because Eddie just was doing like cleansed and homers, or did you do like some ones where you have to be in?
That's why chickens ain't got teeth. That's why chickens ain't got teeth. I was curious on how long is there between mission packs usually for 40K.
9th edition was, I think we got like one every 6 months. So I don't know. We might be due for one, or it might not be till the summer that we get a mission pack.
How do you feel about the mirror match, Orks versus Orch? Oh man, that's one where it very much relies on CP management.
Yeah, CP for sure.
Who goes second, and who's cheeky enough? Well, who's cheeky enough to understand move blocking, tagging characters with secondary units to force them to fight you someone else. And priority setting up, say you have flash kits and the other guys doesn't. If you let them get a charge off on flash kits, if you present yourself on the battlefield with angles of fire and you start punishing the Orks for staging and crossing the battlefield to counter you and charge you, then all of a sudden you're picking up Orks in a different way, and that swings the matchup because now they're not fighting on death. You know what I'm saying? And so fighting on death really matters. Oh yeah, David, you got to get more over there. My fault. It's more of my fake.
I don't know. We just need a better. We need a bigger camera.
We don't have a bigger camera, guys. David comes in when his moment to shine.
That's on us. We're trying to squeeze.
We'll get there.
On our matchups, I struggle with Death Guard. Yes, Death Guard is another one. Why I'm bringing Gaz too, just so you guys know. And maybe in those big bricks of Beast Snagga Boys, you can deal with a bunch of different problems. We'll go with Death Guard. Let me see their points real quick. I got stomped by Blue Beakies. Hellblast, dude. Hellblasters are crazy. They also have a strat that lets them move 6 after you charge.
Yeah, that's Vanguard Marines.
Yeah, and it's only, is it auto 6? Well, I guess that actually no, they have a 2 strats for it.
If you're Phobos, it's auto 6. If you're not Phobos, it's D6. It's basically like Tanglefoot from Custodes is the best way to think about it.
Yeah. Also, Hellblasters are great for killing squigs, which is another reason why I don't bring squigs right now. We need a channel review with Wicked Joe. He's putting in the work for tournaments. He has good for beginner perspective play and can get into competitive play if he's keen. I met Wicked Joe and we played. So maybe when we play again, I'll talk to him in person at Adepticon. David's not hiding. David?
I use behind enemy lines and deploy teleport.
Whoa for the Zach Shock for the super chat. So yeah, that's I used deploy homers and cleanse when I've been playing. In that way you can play kind of passively, so you don't always have to go out and chase your enemies down.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that too. David, your favorite increase, at least between your factions, what's going on here?
Yeah, right. So here we got a lot of point decreases, which is good overall for demons. The biggest things that got increases are units that got used for allies for other Chaos Space Marines like Thousand Suns and Death Guard, and pretty much any Chaos Space Marine that wanted to bring Nurglings. So I think the biggest builds that come out of this that might affect Orks, although I'm still not too concerned, is just bringing more units. Like now they're capable of bringing a lot of MSU units. I don't think the Monster Mash is really a concern for Orks.
If you bring the right pieces, which you should, because you're thinking of Custos, you're thinking of Catans, you're thinking of a bunch of different things already.
Yeah, another archetype that a lot of people are excited about, or just bringing a lot of Blood Crushers. Which I'm surprised they went down, honestly. I thought the rules were a little too strong.
Those things are
They're right
good.
here. There they are.
I was saying they should get
Tell them how.
Yeah.
Sorry. Talk about Blood Crushers real quick a little bit.
Blood Crushers on the charge. If they're
David was supposed to do it.
Well, I was gonna go.
You go.
All right, so the Blood Crushers on the charge, they roll a d6 for each unit or each model in engagement range.
No, it's not even an engagement range.
Oh, it's not an engagement
It's
range.
the unit. It's crazy.
Oh. Yep.
Even worse for those 6-man units.
7 because they have a character in it.
Yeah.
So with the character that you mentioned, he also gives mortal wound or dev wounds on the bites from the mounts. And that's just a lot of mortal wounds on the charge.
Great ingress unit.
Yeah, great ingress unit. Also, their Ren Master has a stacking ability where he can give him an additional strength, AP, and damage. And if you have multiple of them, well, that's possibly +3 for all those stat lines.
Insane.
So they hit hard on the charge, but after they hit, if they don't wipe out the unit, they tend to get stuck there.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah, so they're
but
at least they're not a really big concern for Orks.
They're averaging like 343 on the charge mortal wounds. So
and this matters
averaging 7
for Orks in particular because of their profile durability, their ability to counter charges really reliably. And he goes, when are the Orks going to be addressed? We're talking about every faction and how they go into the Orks between the changes, because every faction needs to be talked about. As if we're talking about just the Orks, it's only a couple minor changes. It's only about 5 minutes worth of talk or 10 minutes. In reality, knowing how the whole meta around you is changed in every faction that if you have seen or might see comes into play, and tools you need to look out for, that's what this is about. We want to talk about everybody. That way we take the whole universe into consideration.
Yeah. Eddie will tell you the hardest thing about playing 40K is knowing your other army rules. Isn't only the opponent's rules, because that's where you're going to lose games, is where you make the mistakes where you just didn't know what your opponent could do. So planning around that is the best way to win. And that's why going over everything helps everyone learn those matchups just even better. Yeah.
So we're definitely going to have that. So we appreciate it. So we have, and what else? More other things. The Ren Master.
You were pointing at the Skull Cannon. Skull Cannon went back to the 190 points that it used to be. And that's just a good shooting platform. I like the Nurgle version the best.
I want to say something.
Oh,
am I crazy here? I just want to know, guys. You guys tell me too. What's going on? Do you think the Great Unclean One or Soul Grinder or something could be interesting from coming in as an ally for some of our different matchups? Is this crazy? Because he's looking kind of cheap for 230.
The issue with this, the Great Unclean One isn't too bad.
I mean,
you gotta bring Nurglings.
And Soul Grinders are the ones that get indirect.
Battle line,
and you want Nurglings. So I'm saying if you think about Death Guard, would you want Soul Grinders? Because they're maybe, instead of some kind of Chaos Knight, like a Brigand, would you bring a Soul Grinder? Soul Grinder has 8. I'm just saying. I just wanted to bring it up.
They take up so much space on the board.
Am I crazy? I mean, people don't care about that necessarily.
If you were gonna take a Great Unclean One, I prefer Rotigus. He hits a little more reliably in melee, and he's the same point value.
But do you see this coming? Am I talking crazy?
Really.
Community, talk to me too. Am I talking crazy for Soul Grinders coming on the table with Death Guard because they might have lost their Brigands and decide, hey, these guys can come in. Morty is also going to make them ignore modifiers. Could they become interesting?
Does he work? They have an Nurgle keyword?
I'm wondering. That's what I'm saying. If for the other units, maybe not them, but for the vehicles as well, yeah. But I'm saying Morty will be on the table. You're dealing with a bunch of these deep thickness. Are they going to think I'm going to have thickness and firepower? But we'll see. I've gone to the Great Unclean Ones. They're actually good into the Orks. That's why I just wanted to bring it up. they have a good profile into orcs. I mean, it's not the Arena Cleans, the Soul Grinders. So I just wanted to say that. And then, of course, we have Scarbrand. So if you see a matchup of Khorne versus Orks, that could be a quite interesting matchup, in my opinion. You guys have to be wary of their shenanigans. Do you guys want to talk about their shenanigans for teleportation and moving around the table?
They're just Bellacore, and their aura ability lets them turn into 6-inch deep strike charge, which is really easy to pull off compared to 9. So you see a lot of just movement shenanigans. They're always hopping around. You're never out of the battle because they can always be everywhere on the whole board, like any turn they want to.
Yes, it becomes interesting. I don't think there'll be a problem because nobody plays them enough, but be wary of them having just so many models, and they can actually punch you because orcs can be kind of soft to some of the Khorne units. Now we have what I consider a sleeper difficult matchup in the Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights were already kind of seen as a hard matchup when you bring a bunch of war dogs, essentially, you know, a bunch of the small baby knights. Oh, Chris, tell me again, please. What's up, homies? When you see a bunch of them spamming a bunch of the baby knights, it became very problematic. Having enough tools to kill enough of them reliably before they shoot you down. Squigahog boys were a huge factor in this matchup. Yet you've seen all these knights going down in points. Chris, as you know, you've played with them, you've played against them, and you know how orcs are to deal with. Having a bunch of T11, anything greater T10, anything T10 greater pretty much is very difficult for orcs to deal with without squigs. A beast boss on foot with the beast snaggable units, way too expensive for viable trades here. You know, what's going on with this?
Yeah, I think an important thing to think about when thinking of knights and chaos knights just in general is it also depends what kind of terrain layout you guys like. If you're playing against these big armies, it's kind of an auto lose if your terrain is bad. So make sure your guys' terrain boards are good. But their big thing is too is they have a lot of shots. They move quick. They have high OC.
Great OC.
So you gotta like know how to move block, and that's if you can, because they have this strat that just lets them move through everything. But it's just shoot what you can kill. Don't overextend for knights, because if you overextend, you give them free charges. So just know what you can shoot. Make sure you shoot the right things. Make sure you charge the right things. This might be one of those armies you don't want to multi-charge too many things, because if they will interrupt, they will smash whatever they interrupt.
Yeah, they have the easy capability to one-shot Maz with some of their bigger knights, as in don't even test them because it's going to happen. And they have the ability to pop your transports, chip down your units, and then when you do get the charge off on them, they just do nothing. So staging is extremely important. Letting them know your threat range and hoping that they're too scared to play and interact with you early, and just staying on the table for at least 2 turns by staging and playing the mission. This is where having a passive secondary, like I said, maybe a fixed one where you just stand and then be prepared to kill them. I'm going to do deploy. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to do a cleanse here, stand here, make them come towards you and actually try to come get you. Because if not, you're running out to go get them. They're going to pick you apart. They're going to let you kill what they want you to kill. They could run through buildings at you as well. Remember, they have that capability. So they're way more versatile and mobile than you would imagine. And tagging an objective with that base just destroys your OC. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will tell you knights, games versus knights are either like won or lost by the first 2 turns, because it can swing so hard either way.
Oh, for sure.
Depending on how the staging goes.
And squigs mattered so much in this matchup. Coming with a wagon and boys, you could just roll bad enough that they take that wagon out too early and your boys get nowhere and get picked apart. You lack the OC. It's a huge investment. Gaz doesn't actually get off where he needs to. Someone interacts with him first. It could be a difficult game for orcs. It has been a difficult game for orcs, but not too many people on the intermediate level are going to spam war dogs at you. So don't be scared of them if you're running around. Just be aware that if you're going to an RTT or a GT, you're likely to see a war dog spam list somewhere around there. If there's not 1, there's probably 5. Okay, so difficult matchup, at least in our top 6 difficult matchups, in my opinion. So we'll see that from the data when we go over on Wednesday in a couple weeks from now and see where I'm right on my predictions and where I'm wrong. Chaos Space Marines we did talk about a bit, so we can just summarize that up real quick, Chris, because you ranted about them earlier a little bit.
Summary, basically just the meta lists are dead. They're going to have to pivot, but just because they're going to have to pivot doesn't mean those lists are going to be too weak. They still have a lot of hard-hitting tools, and they usually punch above their weight with what they do use.
I think they're going to use gun lines with Abaddon, like we said with the vehicle lines. So really, it's terrain dependent. If someone knows they're going to be able to shoot you, don't be surprised if they show up at Adepticon and shoot you, because they're going to have a lot of vehicles and be able to re-roll everything there. So that's one of the stages. But other than that, I don't see them as being something we're going to tech for. And they lost a bunch of power. Dark Angels are in like a weird spot because their codex isn't legal, so these points are for the index.
So they might get a refresh once their codex quote unquote gets released, because they got nerfed in the codex, and these points don't do enough, in my opinion,
Yeah.
to put them over the edge and make them competitive.
So I'm not going to waste time on this because we don't know if something's going to change there. But we are going to talk about the Death Guard. So, Chris, real quick.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you have here, you have the Plague Marine nerf, the Plague Burst Crawler nerf. We have the buff to Terminators. Terminators, you can do 3 plus a character for 200 points. That's pretty cheap.
Oh, dude. And the fact that the floated bloat drone is 90 points, it went down again. It was already a steal at 100.
Mm-hmm.
My God, I was just talking about Orks don't like to kill anything that's oddly durable, that's a vehicle. Try to get a good trade out of a 90-point floated bloat drone.
Typhus going down 80 points
Right.
too. Whew, I feel like he's almost auto-include territory
I
now.
think he's quite great with his shredding mortal wounds everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, you could argue that they're going to start bringing Morty with the change, even with that point value, so that he can have an unmodifiable just ability to near him.
Yeah.
He can ignore his
It's
armor of
pretty
contempt, your toughness. For Orcs, not necessarily great, but that means his Plague Burst crawlers are going to be hitting with indirect at full ballistic skill.
Yep.
And we hate indirect. It also means that if they choose to peek because we don't have long range firepower, the entropy cannons are just going to reliably start popping your transports too. And they're going to have floated blow drones for even cheaper than they did before. Not to mention these Death Shroud that have become cheaper as well. They have flamers that are horrible to deal with your Orc boys. They're anti-infantry. They can reroll wounds with the right character. It becomes very interesting on them. So Death Guard, like I said, might have become a slightly harder matchup if they're still using Nurglings, which they should. And I think the better list didn't. I'm gonna say the better list. How about the War Dog spam coming in? They can't use as many War Dogs anymore, but they can still use.
No, they can still use the same amount.
2 brigands.
No, they can still use 3.
They can still use 3.
So the limit to War Dogs isn't on points; it's on the number of models you bring. So they can be 510 points and 3 models. It's totally fine. Yeah. So it's never on points limits. It was 9th edition. It was
then I was right. Then it is still. Oh, then even worse. It's still horrible. Yep. I was like, okay, still bringing 3. Yes. So then you have to then you have to deal with the 3 brigands as well. Yeah, because Chris still brings 3. That's why he was so adamant. He's like, I'm still bringing 3. Just so you know.
The only difference is you can't reserve 3 at the same time now. One has to start on the board.
Yeah, which is fine. They're so fast. So popping our transports, they do not reliably pop the battle wagon, but hey, they can roll with the capability to do so. And they have the volume of fire to kill the boys that drop out of there, whether it be banner boys, whether they be beast snagger boys. So they're going to be a continuous difficult problem that we're going to have to deal with. I'm bringing Gaz because when I make contact with them, I'm trying to just punch through them. That's really what it comes down to. Do we need Maz is what I'm wondering in the meta. So does Maz help us in this Death Guard matchup? Doesn't Maz help us in the rest of our matchups? Or are we riding too heavily on the 4 on the 4?
Honestly, I feel like Death Guard don't have a lot of tools for Maz, because I mean their Plague Burst crawlers have 2 shots that are good into him, but the rest of the army, nothing else is good into Maz. Like honestly, they don't have much.
They hold him. Yeah, they erode him over time. It's just that he ends up getting stuck because he doesn't kill them that easily either if they're -1 to hit. So he's not really a good killer, but he can hold. So I just meant for the rest of our matchups too, because that's what I'm going through all of this looking at when I'm thinking of, do I want Gaz when I look at this? Yes. Do I want Maz when I think of this? I mean, right now I'm still using them, so the answer is yes. But I'm just giving the conversation out to you guys because I know some of you guys don't agree with me, which is great. Oh yeah, sorry, I was looking in the chat. As for how Death Guard is doing as a whole, I think they're going to increase in overall. Oh, sorry, we just get taken out. Snaggy Gas, what? Gifted 20. Wow. Memberships, that is a record. Whoa, that's a record. Boy, if I see any of you pink Humies in here with your ungifted membership collected, I'm about to get stuck in with you lads.
That's like
what's going on there?
Memberships and 29 people.
Oh my God, going crazy, right? All of you guys should be collected, right? What the heck? I'm about to put this dude just because he has the right face. What? That's the right face for that dude, because that's how I'm feeling. I'm leaving that up. So as for Death Guard with this matchup, how it's going is they're going to increase in their wins. Now, how does Death Guard get countered by the rest of it? How do you feel Death Guard go with Necrons, Custode, Leagues of Voltan? This is where I'm saying, where are we going to see them on our way up? Let's see at a GT level when you're running 5 rounds.
I think they're a solid army that if you have a good general, they can really perform well. I don't think there's any like solid weaknesses to them. They're a little slow, but the fact that they can ally in some units or throw stuff in the rhinos, the speed is okay.
I think they're going to stay around a B+ rating because of their speed and their like lacking of mobility. They are hard counter to us, but I think you're more likely to meet them at round 3 at a tournament than anything. Like round 3 to be sooner. I don't think they're going to make it deep and into rankings all the time at events unless you have like one pristine Death Guard player. But as a
Mhm.
whole, are you going to see them? No, I think they're still a little too slow to deal with, like for them to deal with as a whole. And they still have other natural predators that can just kill them and punish them for being slow. So I still think Death Guard is interesting. David, get in there because Christian's going to run away. Oh, Death Watch. You know, if you guys want to talk about Death Watch, you guys need more friends because I don't want to talk about Death Watch. I'm just messing with you. Christian. We're going to talk about Drakari when Christian comes back because Drakari is his faction. What?
All right, one last thing about Death Guard though is
I'm going back.
you're still gonna see Nurglings on those lists. 40 points. They're still a good deal for that, and that helps them a little bit with their lack of speed, so they don't get stuck. So at least they can like move block someone that might beat them on speed. So.
Well, that makes a huge difference, in my opinion, for if they go first and they have their Nurglings right in front of you, they fill up those lanes if you're still using Squig Hog Boys. Yes. Right? You're still using trucks. I know some people are using 4 trucks. You're using wagons. You're using kill rings. You're using squigs. Nurglings, boom. Right player might just say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to fill up these lanes. I'm going to spread these guys out. I'm going to use 2 out of my 4 Nurglings to move block these lanes and just gunk you up. And there you go. Turn 1, you're already dealt with. That's another reason why I brought Mandos on one of the lists I've been using and the list that I've been creating. It's because, man, Commandos, I've had this conversation with a couple of you gets in the chat. What I'm going to say, and Christian worded it perfectly, is let's stop pretending they're anything but a premium screen. Go ahead and just take a wishbone formation, which is pretty much just imagine a T with 2 long ends. So it's just, you know, 2 straight line and then end on this end and then the end on this end, right? So you're calling that a wishbone formation. Go ahead and just screen out the whole area. That way you're stopping multiple infiltrating units, multiple scouting units. Don't treat them for what they're not. And hey, if you go first, now you can just freely walk up into someone's range. Also helps for fixed secondaries. If you go first, you start doing double cleanse. You start doing deploy homers. People will call it a conga line, but I call it a wishbone because you need to have bolt on both sides of the formation to retain coherency. But yeah, you can call it conga line too. Conga lining, all that. That's what we call it in 8th edition. The point is that Mandos are nothing other than an expensive screen. Let's stop pretending they're anything other than that because of stuff like this. If you can stop the Nurglings from taking you over the mid-table and from you not moving at all, that's a huge factor. Stopping scouts, that's a huge factor. So everything in between, Mandos become into play. And I think in the Death Guard matchup, it's not about killing. It's not about necessarily even scoring. It's about board control and being able to play the game how you want and still when you want. Not just in the Death Guard matchup, but for anybody that get in your way and slow you down right away. You know, you have Vanguard Space Marines that we have coming up. So we'll talk about that too. And then we have Drakari. We'll go back to Drakari because Chris Christian's faction anyways. Gene Stealers, I don't think anything's changed with them enough. The way we're playing anyways with board for presence and control, we should be fine here. I'm not going to pretend I know too much about Gene Stealers because I've literally not even seen one player in person in like this edition. This is how it goes. Oh, funny Christian laugh when we're talking about his factions because Christian's been playing with Grey Knights actually. Yeah, he's been playing with Grey Knights a little bit. I believe he's dropping them for his Necrons. We could go over this real quick, but I'm going to let him go over his factions because we prepped for it. He just walked away to use the bathroom real quick. So Imperial Knights. Now, these guys took crazy point changes. If they lose some of their, let's just say if they decide not to bring Agents of the Imperium, they could try to squeeze in another baby knight onto their list, which I think greatly helps them in their matchups. Canis Rex is someone to look out for. I think he's cheap enough and devastating enough that he's quite important in the matchups. You do have to be weary of the Lancers, but if you see Lancers on the night matchup, that's actually more in your favor as an Orc player than not, unless you're playing Serval Skulls. And then which are the version of these knights that I like? Which are the ones that the double auto cannons? I forgot what the baby knights were called with the double auto cannons.
Oh, that's the go up.
Helverins.
Yeah, the Helverins.
No, that's what
They went down as the first one.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know why I was doing that. Oh, there they are. 140 points. Yeah, I was thinking that when I was looking at their points. 140 points for Helverin. That actually hurts Orcs greatly. Like we always talk about. You don't really need great AP. You just need damage 3, good strength, decent enough volume. They can fit a couple of these on the table, a Canis Rex on the table. It could help them. Like I said, what you really always worry about here is having enough tools to kill enough of them and keeping them at threat range, not throwing away your stuff turn 1, having enough activations to slow play that turn. Now, Christian, we are going to go over your factions if you want to squeeze back on here because we have Drakari and Grey Knights came up. So now we're going to talk about Drakari. We are going to go over the actual detachment rules and how I think that goes into Orcs too. But Christian will give you his little rundown because I think, have you tried them this edition? You tried them since they got the new rules, right?
I've played them 10th edition. I played them like twice and realized that was 2 times too many. So then I took a little break from them. And the big thing with Drakari, especially into the Orc matchup, is They run out. They punch
Well,
you.
first go
once.
over their points real quick about. Oh no, actually, just say what you were saying. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Jakari paper thin. So they run out, punch you once. If they kill you, that's awesome, but it doesn't matter what happens afterwards because they're just dead. They have the worst saves in the game. They're like honestly worse than Orks. So they only have 6 up invulns and a few ways to get access to 5-ups. They got a lot of model cheapers, but the thing is, you might see maybe one more unit on their list, but it's not enough to me, in my opinion, to suddenly have them be quote unquote flooding the board enough to win the game. They're still only strength 4. They might get Lance, but you just pop art as nails, and then suddenly when you have 5s again, and it's just not enough to do anything to Orks.
Don't they have anti-infantry weapons as
Shooting,
well?
it's like 301.
I know they have infantry shooting weapons. Of course, they have a lot of transports. They can reactionary move to get away from you. I do worry about that as an Orc sometimes. You do have to deal with Scourges, Talos.
The thing with Jakari is that unless they're the type of army, like person who's building an army that has every single model, the list most people are going to put together aren't going to be optimized. It's not something to worry about unless you're going like a GT, realistically.
Yeah, and there's going to be just one psychopath that knows how to play them perfectly well.
Scary.
Scary, yeah. If you see Scary coming,
it's okay. Unless you're in Canada, you won't see him.
Yeah. Don't come over here, Scary. Stay your ass over there, bro. I want to deal with that. We have Grey Knights over here. So Grey Knights, that's a 50-50 faction right now going into Orks. So Chris talking about Librarian and how you feel when we've played it with our Grey Knights and Orks. Undefeated.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not kidding, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, that's a joke.
The thing with Grey Knights is they're going to lean away from mortal wounds and go more into anti-tank guns, the strength 10 on the Dread Knights. So you're going to see a little bit more light armor, less mortal wounds, which gives them more play into like transport blowing, like getting rid of trucks, getting rid of battle wagons. Before they had really struggled with those kind of things, and it was just kind of an auto win for Orks. You would just pop a truck, say, you're not going to kill my truck as hard as you try unless you charge it with 10 Terminators. Now they can actually make this matchup a little bit harder, which gives them maneuverability. So this is more a true 50-50 matchup now, depending on the list the Grey Knight player brings.
You got wagons, you got kill rigs. You actually should still take it, though. This is one of those matches where running a kill rig, running battle wagons, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, just occupy the table. They're not going to pop you. They're going to run you down.
Grey Knights will feast into the list that bring 4 or 5 trucks, but the list that bring 2 trucks, a battle wagon, and a kill rig, that's going to be way harder for them now.
Yeah, because they just have an issue with the toughness 10 and
toughness 12
toughness 12 especially armor of contempt. Woo. So they're going to actually enjoy actually having a save. And the boys coming out, when they do come out and they spill out, they occupy so much of the table with so much OC if you're playing them correctly that the Grey Knights won't be able to run up and tag objectives. They'll waste a bunch of activations trying to kill them. You'll probably be able to kill them in return. It is a skill game matchup. It is a movement game more than anything. If you start making mistakes, allowing them to go back into reserves and stuff like that, that's where they start to actually win the game.
Yeah,
not necessarily from killing.
This matchup tests your ability to screen. If you can't screen, you can't win this matchup.
Or remember their rules for their teleporting around, Chris. Like you want to reinstigate some of your teleportation shenanigans.
You just don't get within 9. Just make those 9-inch charges, and you don't have to worry about it.
And also come down how they come down and charge you with their characters.
Yeah, so Drago, the chapter master, once per game +3 to charge. He got a change, so now we can do this on turn 1. So really cheeky is you can have Drago with 10 Terminators in your line turn 1, and he's the only character who can actually smash the army. He's -4 AP, flat 3 damage. Drago's the one they need to worry about. I'm looking at Grey Knight list.
That's the one counter charging.
Drago is.
Yeah, you have to have one counter charging awareness, and that's the one counter charging awareness I wanted to bring up. Everything else is kind of you're like, whatever, but. That's one unit that he's going to run in, mess up squigs, mess up knobs, mess up mega knobs, mess up, a lot of different units that you will not want getting crumped. Then we have join the chat late. Have we discussed matchup between Orks and Tau? Orks versus Sister of Battle. Sister of Battles, yes. Tau, no. The Sisters of Battle, I think we're okay still. If you have any particular questions, go ahead and ask though. I think they're fun, not great. Oh, look at we were just talking about. I run a Radagast. Yeah, David, that was bringing up Radagast. The boys will really hold up. Yeah, they will. With Death Guard, my buddy's running him with Chaos Knights at our tournament. Yeah, like Christian was saying, that's pretty much how he loved his world leaders. Been playing Demons 2 chat. Been thinking about playing Demons 2. 2-to-1 ratio. Boys are goated. That's what I'm talking about. Chris?
Last game versus Chaos Knights. Thought I traded well till his Lantern Rampager deadly
demise. Oh my god.
Whew.
Whoa, let's go. Thanks for those gifted memberships, by the way.
I was one of the people who got one of those gifted memberships, so thank you.
Let's go. Yeah. Christian's now one. And you better get the loot and get a badge, my boy. Call it X, call it conga line. I'm buying Mandos. There you go. Is solo Snickrock good? I've heard back and forth about, do they like him? Yes, people bring him. They put him on a list with the Mandos. You can take him apart and just decide to put him on his own. He can do secondaries. Very annoying and not too easy to kill between his stealth.
I think he's okay as long as you're okay with him not living the whole game. If you're willing to make sure he's great for 2, maybe 3 turns and just accept that after that he's kind of useless, then I would say he's good. But I wouldn't expect him to just be one of those models that's going to give you 5 turns worth of secondary points. I think that is overvaluing him.
Yeah, I like better just instead of those points into him, I put it into a solo weird boy. It's like a 30-point difference. So I actually really feel that. I have no clue, but I want to buy his model. Yeah, I like Mandos and Snickrot. I have him too. I haven't got to use him like that yet, but I enjoyed my Mandos, even though, like I said, they're just a big overpriced conga line of stopping people from getting up on you. We talked about Imperial Knights. Now, Christian's favorite, Leagues of Voltan.
Everything is my favorite, Gornetti.
Well, Christian, this is his favorite because one of our buddies plays with them a lot, and then Christian with his World Leaders got a lot of different matchups into them. And as for these changes, do I think that affects them enough? No. I'm just going to go ahead and say no. They're probably going to drop 1 Sagitar. Maybe they'll have only 1 unit of Hearthguard. That's good for us as Hearthguard of the toolbox unit. They're still keeping. Okay, well, they're trying to, but some lists that you're looking at might decide to not. But yeah, they can still fix it because they can just drop 1 transport, degrade 1 unit by a little bit, and then they can fit keep those guys.
Hearthguard are crazy. It's a Terminator unit that gets about 80 shots, hitting at 2s, lethal 6s if you want it to.
Yes, sir. So, it is double. Isn't it double for their sustain? Or is there sustain?
That's not even including this. It's 80 shots before the strat.
Yeah,
it's
30, exactly.
30 from their 30 from their handgun, and then they have D6 grenade launchers, which are
blast, baby.
10d6 plus 30 plus any blast rolls.
That's always fun.
And then they have sustain.
They just pick up all your knobs or boys. If you have a 20-man unit of boys, they pick them up. They have the proper profiles for also countercharging your knobs. So if you let your knobs get countercharged or your flash get charged, they'll just start getting charges off on your flash kits, and they feel good about it. Broke here, Thunderkin. You know, some people are like, they're trash. You don't have to bring them. That comes down to terrain. Like at Adepticon, I assume you're going to see some Thunderkin, maybe, but the point increase maybe deterred.
Yeah, the lists that have been doing well have been running like at least 6 or 9 Thunderkin. Because they're just anti-vehicle 2 up. It's crazy. They can pop vehicles whenever they want.
There's just, I don't mean to be a hater, but like Adepticon's gonna have some open terrain. That's why I'm bringing them up a couple times. It is better. It got better. It definitely got better, but it is known for being a bit open, so you can get shot, and that's where you're gonna bring this. Just like LVO, any very, very large tournament, you obviously can't supply that ideal amount of terrain. People know that, and they tech for that. So you have to be aware that's where something like Brokil Thunderkin. But if you're playing with like official GW terrain, which most people aren't or do not have, that's much less relevant. Like at my table here at home, I don't worry about huge firing lines as much. We have better mobility. But when we get to events, sometimes you're like, why is this giant rock here? So be aware of what you're going to go into and play into, right? As for this matchup and us, this is where Mandos, Death Killer Ward Trike, stuff that gets you up the board quicker to continue pressure is going to be very important. Conga lining, whatever you want to call it, wishboning, those commandos is what this is for.
You wanna tag their units a lot, or 2 things. You can either tag everything, or you can just run to the opposite side of the board as their termies, because the termies move 5 and they can't do anything faster than that.
Occupying they did really just doing that. What I was gonna say is also occupying the sides of the table. Maybe you want to use a shock jump drag stuff for that as well. Death Killer War Trike. Coming in early and just saying, shock jump dragster, here you go, screen this side so your bikes don't come in as easily and do your secondaries or do whatever you want to do. Here you go, my Death Killer War Trike on this. Now you're occupying the sides and the flanks. You know where they're going to drop. And if someone tries to meet you in the middle, that's where Orks end up going in. So I've been looking at shock jump dragsters, Death Killer War Trikes, commandos, stuff like that, because you want to be able to take the reserve sides of the table so that the enemy can't just come in as freely from the flanks as you want. That's something that me and Christian were discussing a little bit too, but I thought that was a good idea. If coming in pretty much understanding that between guard, Leagues of Voltan, everything like that, taking the sides of the table is going to be very important now, which something like a shock jump dragster can help you with.
When you see an army that has a lot of strat reserves, run up those sides and push them back to the deployment zone. Don't let them just get any midfield presence when you don't need them to, and it's just run a simple bike unit or maybe drop the Storm Boys early just for screening, because it's gonna take them a long time to catch up.
Yes, and that's exactly what Leagues of Voltan made me think about whenever I think of this matchup is Mandos, Trike, Shock Jib Dragsta, something that if I go first or even second, I'm putting them immediately up the table right over there and saying, well, here you go. You can shoot this first wave away, but you're not taking up this space. You have to now walk and deal with one more turn. And at that point, I've already staged. And now I have crazy different threat range. So I believe Orks are going to have to play in waves of pressure, and Leagues of Voltan are one of those reasons if you see them. Now, Necrons, yeah, there's going to be a talk. Now, Christian, you can go on about our game today a little bit. Not too anecdotal because nobody cares, but, but as for Necrons, between Hypercrypt and Canoptic Port, how you feeling?
Yeah, I think Hypercrypt is still the meta choice for them just because mobility gives them a relatively slow army. And Eddie will tell you that there's just sometimes where they get auto secondaries and it's better to just ignore it and focus on the primary, because otherwise they're just going to keep doing stuff over and over again and just spread you out. And you, as an Orc army, you don't want to spread too far away around the edge of the board away from the objectives, because they're just going to keep scoring points and force you to just grind you down and might win those 1 or 2 5-point games just because of little things they can do that you can.
Yes, understanding that they can move after they shoot if you're playing the right ones. And this is another matchup where Gas becomes very important for me, regardless of which version of Necrons you're playing into, because the different combinations you can use to kill Catans or any other Wraith type of units, any other oddly durable Necron units that they have, like Christian's favorite character, the durable Luminor Caesaris.
He's just cool.
And he's durable. But that's another guy that you really need lethal for that reason. Now, how do you kill Catans easily with Beast Snagger Boys and Gas?
You just throw dice.
So what you do is when you get stuck in with the Catan, you pop Unbridled Carnage while you're within Makari's range on the wall. At that point, you're now getting critical 5s, lethal, which is lethal and sustained for Orcs if you pop Unbridled Carnage. At that point, Beast Snaggle Boys have the reroll against vehicles and monsters capability. I personally like to put the Beast Boss in this unit. You can opt for the Pain Boss if you want. You're just not getting +1 to hit. With this, what you're doing is you're fishing for 5s and 6s. So what that means is you're rolling all your dice. We'll just say 20 edge dice for the sake of the argument. You're going to pick up all the 5s and 6s, put them to the side. You're going to pick up everything, even if it already hit, and roll it again. Because what you're doing is looking just in particular for 5s and 6s, so you can automatically wound this Catan or whatever vehicle monster you're dealing with. Then, now that you've hit with this many times, you have all those 5s becomes sustained. The other ones were lethal. So then you have to now roll out your wounds, and then that'll be on 5s as well. It's because Beast Snagger Boys get a higher strength on
the strength 6 is a great break point for Catan because you're T11. So if you're being regular boys with strength 5, you're not getting the rerolls, not getting the 5s to wound. It doesn't do barely anything compared to the Beast Boys, which basically auto pick up the unit.
Now, keep in mind, this is where kill rigs become kind of hilariously interesting. If you start giving Knobs, Beast Snagger Boys +1 strength into some of these matchups, now you've thrown the strength over a different threshold to a better wounding capability. Even if it's not the wall and the Beast Snagger Boys get stuck in and you use that same strat, even without the additional attacks from the wall, if you're still wounding them on 5s instead of 6s, you can still kill the Catan if you pop that combination. Even though you're not going to be getting it on 5s, you can still help finish him off if he's already hurt. You felt it even when I didn't pop on Bridal Carnage. He still took like 6-7 wounds. So that being said, that's how you start tearing down that unit. You can use the knobs to do the same thing into Wraiths. This same combination goes into Custodes. This same combination will go into Tyranid Nord Emissaries. This is why Gas is becoming interesting for me. Also, having movement shenanigans so you can make the Necrons chase you. They don't just keep you cornered in one spot and knowing what you're doing, so you can try to dismantle their scoring units as well. So you can use Shock Jump Draggers for that. Teleportation from your Weird Boys from that. That's maybe Snickrow might come into play if you like using him.
And then the one thing when using Gaz is make sure just don't let Makari get precisioned.
Right.
If you let Makari get precision, the whole plan falls apart.
Yes, he's very, very important for this. As for will Necrons become important? Yes. Do we have all the tools? Right, do we have all the tools to kill them though? Yes. You need to know what they're doing. You need to bring the right tools. If you're going too small of units that can't punch out full Necron units or full Custodes units like you used to do versus CSM, I think you're going to have a harder time because of that.
Yeah, Necrons will be the kind of army that will just systematically take away your secondary scoring units and force you to want to do actions with the stuff you want to charge with
Hypercrypt unit, because all they're going to do is keep teleporting around the field and going, okay, I'm going to kill those Grots now. I'm going to kill this truck over here now. I'm going to kill that one weird boy over there. They're going to chase you down and just try to outscore you on that. Now we have the actual wall points. All right, boys. So everybody knows what a lot of y'all been thinking, but let's extrapolate on some of those thoughts and some maybe new ideas you haven't heard. So Battle Wagon becoming 160 points is amazing, and Battle Wagon being 160 points means that it's going to be on at least one on the list because now it's cheaper than the trucks. I'm sure you guys already know that. Now it's going up 5 points, doesn't matter. I'm bringing a unit of 10 regardless for things I've already said. Hunter rig and then kill rig. Now this to me again is meta dependent because do you need to get +1 strength from your meta outside of the WAAAGH to have different wounding thresholds? Do you play against a lot of things that have long range anti-tank that can pop a kill rig too easily where you can't do threat saturation because maybe you don't own multiple kill rigs in the battle wagon or a lot of trucks, right? So you need to take those things also to mind. The automatically hitting war tower is great, but you know, if you're moving around and advancing, you're not gonna be able to do it. I still think having war tower still feels good. Like I said, matchup dependent. Hunter rig allows you to bring a nice fat brick like we just talked about for even cheaper than the battle wagon. Yet I don't think it's worth it for that 10-point difference. I haven't found a way to think that the hunter rig is going to become more play in any kind of way than just straight up going for the battle wagon. The kill rig, though, you can argue for different combinations. If you can do 2 different kill rigs to go to the knobs or the wall and the kill rig to go to the knobs as well, you can then get even better wounding thresholds into T11 models. And then you're actually not bouncing and winning them on 5s. So that makes a big difference too. As for kilocans, I think that they're awesome for their points. And when you think about their wounds, their ablative wounds, their rockets, you start feeling like, man, I'm really confident in these guys. They have 2 OC, feels really good having armor saves. Yet in our difficult matchups, they are not helping us in our difficult matchups. They are not helping us with the fact that things are taking up lanes for us. And we have trucks, we have squigs, we have Maz, we have battle wagons, we have kill rigs. Now you have something else that's trying to take up space. So, and you're giving up bring it down as well. And with orcs, you don't necessarily want to give it both bring it down and assassinate. Some people will say go ahead because you can use assassinate as a trick. Just keep in mind, you also want to bring the threshold for each of those a bit lower so the enemy can't actually max them out. So that's where kilocans go as well. You need to build your list into it. Maybe spamming all of them if you own all of them could be an argument. But as for are they going to become meta and something to solve any of our problems? No, actually, I don't think they will.
What do you think about strategic reserving just a three-man model? Is that useful or
sure? But like I said, just putting them on the list starts giving up bringing down and different kind of options. So for 125 points, I mean, if you have that odd number, yeah, it's just generally I don't get left with that number of points. I'm like 110, 115, like 150. Like there's always weird points, and it's never come down to have 125 points left to just plug these guys cleanly. So then we have the buggies, which I'm going to talk about as a whole. So Rucker Truck Squig Buggy being 100 points. You could use this to chip if you're dealing with a lot of infantry 2-1 models. I still don't advise him. Shock Jump Drag, so like I spoke about earlier, he can help you as an early throwaway board control unit for just teleporting, saying, here I am. You can't end up here from strategic reserves. That's his most utility, maybe dropping into a backfield. You might want to bring 2. You might bring 1 in the Weird Boy. Like I said, you know based off what you own. Custom Boosted Blasta, giving someone -1 a hit. If you have one for 75 points, you could argue between both of these. I think Shock and Droughts is better for utility. Making maybe a custode unit -1 a hit could help if you're playing with blobs, but that's some points in bring it down target that I'm not advising. Yet be aware that running something like the Boom Daka Snaz Wagon could be interesting for its -1 a hit aura, for its large volume firepower. Buggies do have more OC than most transports. So if you're talking about going up the table as of early Vanguard, touching an objective and going, haha, I have it, now you don't, now you have to come kill me. That's where buggies are finding their most play. And the Mega Trash Scrapjet, in my opinion, is probably one of the worst. Is probably the worst one. Because you're really just hoping that a damage gets through. Morkanaut going down in points. Sorry, he's not where I want him to be. The Gorkanaut, though, is much more viable. So if you're thinking about running something like this, running Gorkanauts will be a way better game plan. I do appreciate their transportation of 12. They're just not where I want to be at for definitely not the Gorkanaut for 295, but the Morkanaut even, in my opinion, should come down. They just should have a 2-up armor save. That's where I feel about that. Trucks, you're either going to run 4 or 1. It just depends on what other big things are ending up on your list, right? You're running a kill rig or a battle wagon. That depends on where that is and how much bring it point down points you're trying to bring it up. Is Maz on your list for an additional one? And flat Squig Hog Boy is going up so heavy-handed with points does actually affect if they end up on our list. And I kind of felt like the meta was getting away from them anyways. And our new matchups don't really require them to win for us, in my opinion. The only matchup that I really liked them was Squigs. Was Nids, but then even then, the Exocrine was a hard counter to them too. So Orks didn't take heavy-handed messes and breakdowns and nerfs, but our enemies did get stronger, and our tools against them did end up getting a little weaker between Knobs and Squighog boys. It really comes down to our battle wagons going to hold and what units you're going to be using for that and with that. David, with
I think overall, though, for the Orks, this was a win because our most important units didn't get touched, like flash kits. They're going to be very vital. The Overwatch is just so good, and like popping lethals when you shoot normally, just the threat of them, the fact that they can fight as well. So I think that was a big win, and yeah, I like seeing the battle wagons. I'm happy that those went down in points, and like you said, for 10 extra points, I'd rather get the extra durability versus the hunter rig. And I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of more 20-man blobs of boys just for.
I ran
presence.
the Beast Snag of boys. I ran the Knob Banner boys. Every game I've run Bricks of boys, I've had a great time, and I think I've won like all those games. Now, somebody I want to give a shout out to for sure, Mark Perry. Whoa, the Mark Perry. Let's go. If I see you at Adepticon, let's grapple. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think we're allowed to do it there.
Meet him at 280.
Meet me at 280. Wait, I'm not 280 though. Wait, oh, Mark Perry. Oh yeah, I think Mark Perry's over 280. You're right. Yeah, sorry, Mark Perry. I'm not. Yeah. I gotta meet you somewhere. I'm gonna eat a lot of burgers. No, but Mark Perry brings a good point. You can stack the kill rig buffs. So now you're throwing, I would just say knobs. I like to bring up knobs for this reason. Throwing knobs into a higher strength threshold there. Of course, the Beast Snagger boys can get to a higher strength threshold. What I like to mention as well is the kill rig combination with a, let's just say a Pain Boss or a Beast Snagger boy unit on their own, or a Beast Boss with a Beast Snagger boy unit. What that ends up being is a skirmishing unit outside of the wall. You don't necessarily need the wall for those units to go off. You're getting dev wounds automatically from the Beast Boss. The Pain Boss is still getting a feel no pain, bringing guys around. They can still skirmish with Great OC. The kill rig itself can still fight around, give higher strength, so you can wound different things and at higher ability than you need to. So I really like the kill rig combo just because it skirmishes outside of the wall and it becomes oddly durable for trading points, especially with the rig going down. So yeah, shout out to the kill rig because stacking it and the wall just makes your strength outrageous, and I freaking love looking at all the different data sheets going, now I'm really strong, lad. Whoa! I just wish it didn't go off on just you had to roll for it. I think it should just go off, and then lethal could be on a 5 or a 6, because on just 6 feels like you're only going to wish for it. Solo Snickrod is amazing. He's better than a Mando unit and 50% cheaper. You know, I can see why you say that, because he's so easy to hide and he's cheaper. I just sometimes like having a unit that I know the enemy's going to have to go for in the Mandos, and when they don't clear that unit and it starts pulling secondaries, running around the table, not getting touched, avoiding Overwatch, it becomes interesting. But a lot of people argue back and forth on Mandos. I think in our meta, though, for the community as a whole, having a Mando or a Snickrot is going to help you a lot. It's just that if you have, it becomes a lot. You can't really move block necessarily or stop with that one Snickrot. You're really just hoping to do actions and stop in like one unit. So it's a whole different conversation. I wish we had an unnamed solo commando. Let's do, yes, actually right here. Makari can, yes, he can be precisioned. He is his own character, especially once the bodyguards are gone. You can just choose to just attack Makari instead. You know, so that's definitely something you need to be aware of when you play with Makari, is he can be precisioned because he can be chosen, and he's his own character. Right, so he's also giving up assassinate. Keep that in mind too if you're building your assassinate points. Makari is a big deal. A lot of the time, I'll just try to take saves on gas. So let's talk about Space Marines real quick as to a faction that got a big nerf and was sitting at the casual level at like a 46% win rate. Orks were kind of crumping them. We had like a 59% win rate or something into them, which is great. Yet at the top tables, and their Black Templars will say meta, or their Vanguard Ultramarine ones, they lost tools in that, and I like to see that as an orc.
Yeah, so not only did they get hit with some of their harder hitting units, but they also got hit with their utility units and the Inceptor squads and the scouts. The Inceptor squads win 20 points.
Yeah,
20 points.
Yeah. Outrageous.
Yeah, that's outrageous. But I think you're still going to see 3 at least on every list, points just for their deep strike ability. Secure and Devastator squads, those are popular on the Vanguard list just because they benefited in that one a lot. Extra movement because they're so slow. I don't think you'll see them.
You don't think so?
I mean, maybe.
What do you think, Chris? Are they going to bring Centurions?
I
300.
think
for the Vanguard.
the fact that Centurions can hit on threes, reroll ones to hit, and they're just good. They're constantly consistent, and they're twin links, so they're basically rerolling all hits, all wounds.
Yeah.
Last cannon, 6 last cannon shots for that profile isn't too bad, especially because you can reposition it if you do the Ultramarine shenanigans with the reroll Ventress.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a consistent unit that's basically pretty much reliable damage.
Yes, I think that's still coming on the table. If they're bringing in Scepters, I think Space Marines still have to bring in Scepter unit, if not 2. Heavy Intercessors, I don't know. I just think everything that went up isn't helpful to them. I think Black Templars need to be isolated a little more. And if you really wanted to nerf the Vanguard detachment, you should have just gone for like some Ultramarine characters maybe, and then left the Space Marine faction as a whole a little bit alone, not like buried
It
them.
seems like that's the detachment that got hit the hardest with these point increases.
Mhm.
And really, it was only the world champs where they really did anything.
Yeah, where's the Whirlwind on here too? And the Redemptor Dreadnought, and the Whirlwind, and the Scouts.
mhm. So those
Really
were all
happy about the
units.
Whirlwind too, though. I
Well,
hate indirect.
Whirlwinds weren't really even taken. They just hit indirect.
Mhm.
Oh, in
I mean,
general.
Orks hate indirect. If you ran into a Whirlwind list, you did feel that. You were like, indirect, you know.
I'm just saying it was rare.
Yeah, and then the Redemptor Dreadnought,
Yeah,
know,
it's a big
at the intermediate casual level, Whirlwinds, Redemptors would come into play and mess you up. And I love seeing Scouts getting killed like this many points, because now if I kill them, it's more valuable. And Space Marine, you really want to kill that because, like I said, I like going for their scoring and killing units. How this is gonna go with Space Marines, they're gonna start getting dogged by us too. I don't think our tech pieces changes is gonna mess up that matchup and hurt it. If anything, we're still gonna be fully equipped.
Yeah, they're gonna get dogged by everyone.
Yeah, they're gonna die by one. I would just say we could say Wolfen are a little cooler now from the Space Wolves, if you feel like it.
+1 strength, +1 damage, which is cool. That takes them to the strength 6. I'm not super happy with the AP, but it's still usable. They're only 12 points a model. Yeah, they're only like 12 points a model, I believe.
Can you pull that
Yeah,
up,
right?
Chris?
80
Okay.
You want to know about it?
I just want to just bring it up. So with Tau Empire, one thing you see here is the only increase they got were the crisis battle suits. Definitely one of their biggest units. That was the most important. Yet you notice that they didn't take increases to their little tetras, right? I think when we looked at the actual tetras, when they're not right here, tetras didn't go up, and tetras are super important. So you're still going to see them so that they can still get their exploding 6s. What I really like about Tau is they have a lot of stuff that can move up into the mid table, put a bunch of transports in the orc faces. The issue is that they really don't get going until turn 3, and by that turn, we should have overwhelmed them. This is another one of those factions, like I said, if you start taking up the space early with your Mandos, with your Snickrod, I guess, with your teleportation shenanigans, you now made up that space and delayed it. You delayed their delay 1 turn, which means you actually get off 1 turn sooner, which makes all of the difference, because if they let you go off on turn 3, they start going crazy. As for different tech piece changes, Chris, if you read the Riptide, what's the Riptide profile? If you can say it real quick.
So the Riptide has the Ion Accelerator most of the time, and that is they overcharge it. It's 8 strength, 6 shots, strength 8, -3, 4 damage. Don't forget, if they're in Kalyan, they can get double sustained hits when they're guided. So they can hit on 3s with double exploding 6s. And what's also cool is that once per game, they can give themselves dev wounds. They can fall back and shoot with no penalty, and they can ignore all hit modifiers. So if they wanted to stay in combat, they can also just shoot you in combat at full ballistic skill.
Yep.
And then they have a good defensive profile too.
Yeah, bring up their actual
toughness 9. It's 2+ base save, 14 wounds, 4 and 1 with 4 OC. Those are some chunky boys.
Those are some chunky boys for 165 and 4 damage. So if you are thinking of running squigs, Tau now have something that makes them even feel more confident with the Riptides into them. How many shots did they get with that, by the way?
6 shots base.
Okay, yeah. So my goodness, that can start getting outrageous with the Tetras and their Kayun abilities as well. So I think Riptides are going to become more interesting on their list and actually become more relevant. If something can actually fall back and shoot and interact in a way that Tau couldn't, and they might be able to withstand a charge, and they might be able to tag you, be within a tagging, goodness. And then they can still move around with the rest of the ability. They can still bring their their volume of transports and crappy infantry.
Tell us how you really feel.
I know, right? And then they have a good which one is their infiltrating? They have was it the breacher team that infiltrates? I forgot one of their small 10-man units it's their scout guys. What are they called? They literally might be called scout guys, right? Either way, the fact that they have infiltrators makes a huge difference, and then their transports can move too.
Definitely.
And then I know their stealth suits do, but they have something that's even cheaper, I believe.
Go down.
Vespid being cool for 65 points
Pathfinder team?
for that cheap.
Pathfinder.
Yeah, there we go. See, they're like a scout, literally Pathfinders.
And
I should know that.
those guys infiltrate and scout. They're the only units
Yes.
besides Space Marine scouts that do both.
Yeah, dude. And that guys, they get right in your face. Like we just said, you do not want to be delayed. This is one of those units that can just run and just stand right in the lane. Like, hello, Squigs, hello, trucks. I am not doing anything. So right there.
Then you
the
think
unit.
we'll see the Triptide back? 3 or just 2?
Yep. Yeah, 165 for that. If you're not bringing in the top player, you just don't own them. So yeah, I just think as a whole of Orc players, if you're thinking about this, know that the Triptides are coming, and know that I think that's another reason why Squigs are being taken off the table, and being able to put more stuff to get up the table earlier matters more. So you'll hear me bring that up a lot when I'm talking about this data slate, that boys, you need to start bringing stuff to get up the table faster and actually care about guys moving in on you. At least if you're going to a higher level tournament play, because that's what the best players are going to be doing. They're trying to take the mid table and do fixed. So then we have T-Suns. David, you want to laugh? I mean, tell them, say something.
Yeah, so no major changes. The major changes we saw are the demonic pact rules. So you won't be seeing the blue scribes or the change caster for those lone op scoring utility units. You'll probably see more Zangor enlightened instead.
This for Orcs, you're just not worried about them
Yeah.
right now. Just understand their abilities with their flamers. They can throttle into you. They run out of tools if you kill them reliably enough. Just make sure you're behind terrain and staging, and don't go for Magnus. Go for everyone else and deal with him at the end, unless they throw him at you during a lethal and gas or something, and just kill him. Now Tyranids, one of our actual difficult matchups here. With Tyranids, Neurolictors, Death Leapers, Gargoyles, Pyrivores are going up. We do like to see that, yet I'll just tell you right now, Tyranid players don't mind this at all, because they wanted to bring a lot of these units together anyways, like a Neurolictor and some kind of Norn Emissary. Gargoyles going up for just, I believe it's like 5 points, doesn't matter at all. Pyrivores going up about 5 points, doesn't matter at all. Something like the Screamer Killer for 145, like we were talking about, that Riptide destroys this, yet Orcs don't have something to deal with the Screamer Killer necessarily for that many points, which is the interesting part, right? Mandos cost about as much as the Screamer Killer, and our Death Dreads are worse than them. Tyrannofax coming down on points. I still don't think this is going to be on the list, but you never know. I just don't think for 190 points they're willing to put that away. They need to. Tyranids, like their Vanguard or even their invasion fleet, they like to come up the table quickly as you as well, but they do it better because they have the reserves and the ability to come onto the table with stuff like what are those little boys? Oh my god, and their brain fart, Ravners, I believe. So you have all these different tools to play the mission with Tyranids. You're not really trying to kill, you're trying to occupy the space and survive long enough. Orcs might want to take a little bit of that into consideration going forward. It also helps you play against Tyranids, because if you can put them already on the back foot, let them put you on the back foot, you can shoot through them quicker. Because that's one weakness I noticed that I personally, when I made mistakes in the Tyranids, is trying to play a little cagey with them just is not in your favor, because in reality you can just curb stomp them as long as you close the distance on them well enough, and you use stuff like Storm Boys to deal with the mines. Get the Storm Boys to run on, or Bikers to run up, activate the Spore Mines, have the Spore Mines blow up. That way you can advance through that path if they're trying to stop you. Having flash kits on the table out of the truck, that way you can overwatch Gargoyles if they try to move and get in your way, is all very important. And then having Gaz with his lethal capability, so you can maybe tear down a Norm Emissary, or you're throwing some double Mark Perry type of kill rig strength, throwing it up over into the Norns and then being able to punch them down would be hilarious. So like I said, with the Beast Snagger Boys combo too, that could work there. So yeah, that would work. That would be very interesting. Unless they were in Nexus, then they can armor contempt it. So that's just a whole other thing. Tyranids are going to take us down a little bit in our wins. The win rate into them, I think, is going to be hit as well. I think Tyranids just got better and harder for us. That was that. And then Christian's World Eaters. I think this is the last faction, I think. Mm-hmm. World Eaters, haha. They were already a faction that we had a great time into. And Christian will tell you about why he's sad that they're about to get destroyed.
From experience, my list went about like 110 points up. So it went pretty big. A lot of their key characters got points increases in Karn the Betrayer and the MOE. And then, like I mentioned before, with the Relic and the MOE, means it's not as reliable to just smash through whole units. So that takes their healing power down. Everyone was spamming 8-bound and Exalted 8-bound, and those are basically Gravis Marines that actually fight in melee. Really, really strong units that would overperform for their points cost. Now, they're still cheaper than what they started out in the first index from the first 10th edition, but that reduction in points got cut down from 15 to just 5. So they're not as cheap as they used to be. Then the big thing with World Eaters is they have no access to rerolls outside of Angron, and then bringing Angron back just got way harder with the nerf to a relic.
So what's going to happen with them? Let's just cut to the chase. If a World Eaters player is in the area, what should the Orc player look out for? Because where are they even going to go from this? I was thinking immediately when I started to hear the changes, like, oh, maybe we'll see the Demon Prince do something. And then I heard that, and I was like, oh, never mind. Oh, they're gone too. So where are they going with this? Are they making any chance? Are they making any sense here?
I think this brings them back down. I think what they did was GW did a preemptive nerf on this because I think they thought that with all the nerfs, World Eaters were going to rise to the top. Mm-hmm. So this list, I think, brings them back down to like a 50% win rate army with some bad matchups, like which I think of is Orcs probably the worst matchup because Fight on Death just wrecks them because their units are so expensive, so valuable that just taking them out when they feel like they shouldn't have been will just mess up their whole game plan.
Yeah, and tagging for stuff like custodes and armies that have this reduced damage or high toughness means that we'll do better into Angron when he does appear, but we'll also be able to reliably kill all of the 8-bound when we get into combat with them, fight on death reliably when they're with us and being killed as well. And the Mandos, if we choose to use them, can stop them from alpha striking us in that way.
Sure.
And the less tech pieces, if you're bringing the big bricks of boys, you're now dealing with the ignoring the fact that they have reduced damage, which then they hate to see because you're using that. So you need that for custodes, which is why you're bringing them. And you have the flash gets. If you're bringing all the tools you have and you're aware of their rules of auto advancing and such like that, you shouldn't lose to them unless the mission's like Servo Skulls. Maybe.
This is one of those armies that can just be being just by good CP management. Just know how to use your CP. And this matchup should be really easy.
Fight on death. And you're like, all right, and then fight on death. Okay, you have no army left. Now, with this, I want to go over a couple lists, and you guys can be in contention with me about these lists. Tell me what you guys think. So yeah, with that, we're going to start off with one of the first lists I'm showing as an example. I don't have fancy names for my list. This was actually the list I used against Christian recently and his Hypercrypt. So go ahead, Chris, and mention this. Go into this list.
Yeah, so it starts with just a casual Beast Boss with Follow Me Lads, plus 20 Snagga Boys that go in a Battle Wagon. Give you good, allows you to cover the whole midfield with one solid unit, especially with that 12-inch aura from Gas, who's the next card on this list. These guys can punch up way harder than they should. And so, those two characters, we have Captain Badrock. Just every army needs a little bit of shooting. It keeps your opponent honest, and it gives you a solid Overwatch threat.
I've never had a game where Captain Badrock and the Flashes have let me down, but mind you, I am someone who does not reserve them. I bring them on the table most games unless I know the enemy can pop and shoot everybody inside right away. You can usually know that just by knowing their list and knowing what ranges they have. So I tend to put them on the table, either disembark myself or let someone just pop the truck. And in that sense, I'm usually looking at 2 objective, 2 firing lanes. And when people are trying to move to play the mission, if you're like, oh, I'm going to go do a secondary, I kill that unit that you overwatched. Oh, I'm going to go take an angle on your big brick or beast snagger boys, I'm going to overwatch. I'm going to see this big soul grinder or T11 monster, whatever it is with the 3-up that has a 3-up armor save. I'm going to pop lethals and I'm going to just kill you right now. Oh, you're getting within range of me, I'm going to counter charge you now. So there's so many, and especially with Gaz's lethal, now you have 40 punches from the flash gets, not including the WAAAGH. Which that becomes 50.
They're base 4.
Yes, because they're knobs with choppas. So they're strength 5 with base 4. That means they're pretty much like the Squighog boys, but they're not really rolling full the hits. But you're still getting obnoxious amount of punches from them, and you're reducing toughness, so they don't even need to get up to the higher strength threshold. So that becomes silly. You can even punch, custodes with this unit, so you can pop them, make them pop their feel no pains, and then run in and finish them off. I don't advise that unless you really have to, because then they'll kill you if you don't survive. But the amount of lethals and punches you can get is obnoxious. It's really about putting them on the table and using the same strategy the enemy wants to use you against an orc player, against them, and picking up their tools when they don't want to. They hate it. Christian hated it. All right, so do another one.
So outside of Captain Badrock, we have the old reliable Mazrog, just staying around way too long, rolling way too many crit 6s than he should be.
Yeah, too lucky. And then one war boss.
Yeah, with the 10 knobs, because it's just...
That's my scalpel, boys. You just need to be able to cut out an enemy unit when it's on the table, whether it has a great armor save, armor of contempt, whatever it needs to be. And it gives you that other ability to, if the beast snagger boys aren't the right option, the knobs are the right option for Gaz's lethal aura when they get within range of Bakari.
And then the next piece is our tech piece. So when me and Eddie were building this list, what we came to decision was we needed to find space for Follow Me Lads. The extra 2 inches can be huge. I think of it as a +2 to charge. And if a +2 to charge just sounds amazing as a buff.
And you can, in some matchups, disembark from the wagon just right away, stage and be prepared. Yeah, I'll lose 4 or 5 bullies when I get shot at the little angle, but I'm going to pop here we go, and I'm just going to fly across the table and take your home field objective. Follow me, lads, makes a big difference.
And then the 2 weird boys, where they come in is there were 2 Stormboy units, but trading those units points. So Stormboys are 65?
Yep.
How much is Follow Me, lads?
25.
Yeah, so we needed 20 extra
I
points.
have 5 points left over on this
Yeah,
list.
so we needed to find 20 points to cut. So we turned 2 Storm Boys into 2 Weird Boys.
I already had one. I had 1 Storm Boy because I know somebody in the chat's going to argue with me. I'm talking to you, Antonio, who's going to say, I want the 1 Storm Boy unit instead of the 2 Storm Boys. I understand. Sorry, a Weird Boy and a Storm Boy. I understand why you would say that. I think a Storm Boy unit works good if you're chasing down some Eldar. You got to punch a little baby Tau unit. Totally get it. Totally understand why you love it. Having 2 Weird Boys, though, is cheaper. I got the fake Follow Me, lads, which I thought was super important for this list, as well as the Weird Boys will stick in a corner, and most armies besides Necrons cannot Hypercrypt will be able to chase him down.
Literally every army besides the one that he played against
will be able to hide just completely. So I just found that to be very useful, and having 2 of them means you don't worry about dropping in the 1, right? You can just go, oops, I'll do it again, or you keep them in the truck, because I do have 2 trucks here. I put 1 in each truck. So then I have the 2 trucks right here. Like I said, flash gets knobs, and in some cases, because Hypercrypt can shoot you, I put a Weird Boy in each truck. Then I had the wagon. The wagon contained the Beast Boss, Follow Me, lads, and the 20 dudes. 2 Gretchen units, Mandos, the knobs just for Gaz's bodyguard. So this list is silly at first glance, and at first I was like, I can't believe I'm actually going to try this into Hypercrypt. This is outrageous, but it does have the tools that I feel like I'm going to need, and it actually did. Me and Christian tied 97 to 97.
Literally.
Christian was playing Necrons for many years, and he's played Tyranids. Grey Knights with their movement shenanigans already. So he's already been playing shenanigan abilities, combat armies. He very much knew what we were doing. Of course, he was being polite with his P's and Q's so he wouldn't get me with gotcha moments. Otherwise, he could have just straight up won. But based off playing our rules correctly and actually rolling out at our best potential, we had the ability to actually tie here. And anybody could have won.
I think one thing to call for this list is this is a list that's built for fixed. So when you're looking at this list too, it might look like it has a little less tools to punch things, but that's because you're not spending CP as liberally as you would be as you're taking tactical secondaries. So because you're stingy on your CP, you're looking at the units you want to be in, you're cutting the trim, and so it has a lot of one-off tools, not a lot of repetition in the list. So you got to, if you're thinking about running the specific list, know how to use your tools to the maximum potential, because if you don't get the max out of your units, you're going to miss those secondaries that you can't just maximize. If you use your CP wrong, if you used maybe 1 too many Overwatches or 1 too many Artist Nails, 1 too many.
I used Unbridled Carnage once.
Yes.
And I used Artist Nails once. The other ones were Overwatches, and I had a CP in the bank to re-roll if I wanted. And one time I passed morale.
Yeah.
That's literally
and
what
we ended the game at 0 CP. So you mess up CP once, and then there goes 2 or 3 points from the list.
And
there goes the L.
I do take pride in my CP discipline in every edition, so I know that was a big factor. But I know when I watch other people play, you want to go Ardenals every time you're targeted, and sometimes you just got to ride the dice, let an army die. And this is one of those times in this list where I was very much like, nope, I'm not going to do anything. Go ahead and shoot. Nope, go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and shoot.
When Eddie was budgeting for this list, another reason you want to do Follow Me Lads is he's not budgeting for the CP reroll. He needs that guaranteed charge, and Follow Me Lads helps him get that. Because if he has to use a CP reroll, suddenly he has nothing for defense, nothing for offense, and he's just a sitting duck in the middle.
And I'd rather use Here We Go and then just get compounding effect to all of that to increase my overall threat range, which is Follow Me Lads makes that a compounding effect for the 1 CP. So I decided, instead of always thinking of that, of course, I do have that in the bank, a part of my CP management, because I'm not a psycho. But that's how this list rolls. Commandos, wagons go up. You occupy the middle of the table. You're going for ghastly lethals between each of those units. Mandos are jumping into the enemy's deployment. I'm able to cleanse if I have to between the trucks or the wagon and the Weird Boys. And I've even used Gaz to do it, because Gaz will sometimes bully the middle of the table and no one will interact with him. It might sound crazy, but that actually happens. So I did it with Gaz too. And you know
one thing with these kinds of lists is you got to know what resources are valuable for the end game. You got to know when to let resources just go. Like, hey, my commandos, I love them, but I need that CP for something else. They're just gonna have to bite the dust, and I'm gonna have to find a way to win the game without them, because the CP usage is really, really critical with these kind of lists. But you can get so much out of it if you know how to use it right.
And you do, because Orks have some of the best strats. Now, the second list that I come up, this list, there's different iterations of this, but in our Discord, a lot of different people showed me something like this. This is running triple war bosses. So we have Death Killer Wartrike with Super Cyborg Body, Gazgul, Captain Bardock, Mazrog, Triple War Boss, Weird Boy. Weird Boy for the secondaries like we spoke before. 3 trucks. I've seen people show me this list with 4 trucks. If you send something similar, I'll respect it. There's no wrong answer here, but this is the archetype that I see a lot of Orc players are already kind of leaning into, which is Triple War Boss, Gaz. I've seen people drop Maz, but I just wanted to bring that up. We have Flash Gits, 3 units of Gretchen because people want to occupy the table, have even more OC, throw Grots at them, do secondaries, stuff like that. I still think 3 units of Gretchen is good, especially with Hypercrypt, Grey Knights appearing, Vanguard Tyranids. Sometimes you just need more bodies, more screening capability. Then you have the Knobs, just 3-man, 2-man unit. I know people will pay for 3. I get why. I can only afford 2. 1 big brick of Knobs, and then 2 5-mans for those small little scalpel skirmishing. For the point values, it's quite amazing. It's really good into Space Marines, really good into any power armor armies. And if you get these little units off during the WAAAGH with Gaz's lethal, now they become they become lethal into small skirmishing monsters or other 200-point value units that sometimes they would bounce off.
It's just a free 30 attacks. Just why not?
It's outrageous. So I like that. And then just 1 Storm Boy, because like I said, you can literally just use 1 Storm Boy and 1 Weird Boy to do a lot of the fixed secondaries if you choose to, or even tactical. I could see people trying to find a way to put the bikes on this list as well. If you want to, bikes would work very well into this list. But this is just one of the archetypes that I've seen. Having multiple sources of Feel No Pains is very important. And then we have a super chat from Lexi157. Whoa! I don't know what MYR is, but thank you very much. I appreciate you. Very generous. Just joined the stream. Don't know what's going on. Ear for some tea for the whoa!
Always.
All we're going is we were discussing every faction and how their changes applies to the Orcs and some tech pieces we're going to want to bring going into this. My predictions as to if they're going to become difficult or not. And then here we're just showing a few list examples of some of the newer archetypes or some archetypes I personally favor. Of course, I know Happy Crumper made his own, so I try not to do something with exactly the same, because we also already know that 20-man units of Pain Boys is awesome. Using them in double wagons. We have lists in our list archive that we always post of double wagons working, 1 wagon and a boy truck working. Sean Naden's list only went down by 5 points. So those are a couple different lists or archetypes you can look at on top of the ones that I'm showing you. So thank you very much. And Chris, what were you going to say?
It's Malaysian currency.
Yeah, Malaysian currency. Whoa, let's go. Got me some Malaysian teeth, boy. All right. So, and then last but certainly not least, this is one of my more love lists. This was actually, let's say that you were just collecting Beast Snagger Boys and you're a newer player. You don't want to be throwing off what you have. You still want to enjoy the games with your friends. I still think you can. This was more what I would use. Would I use Hunter rigs? Would I use Kill rigs? What would I do? This is a bit more what I would do, and I'm going to tell you why. So we have a Beast Boss. Love the Dev Wounds. Love his +1 to hit. Mazrad Scragbag. Duh. Naban Smasher Squig, another Naban Smasher Squig. He's 75 points, and the other ones I accidentally erased their enhancements. It's Cunning but Brutal and Edwab's Kill Choppa. So sorry I erased their enhancements, but that's each one of them has that. I love Cunning but Brutal because people will tag your Squig unit if they can at the end of it, if you're like a newer player, and stop you from getting Lance. Also, if the unit gets diminished and you know it's not going to kill anyone, have the capability to, you can fall back and do actions with that unit. Sometimes after they've gone off and maybe someone fought in death from World Eaters or whatever, that leftover guys can do something, right? The Pain Boss allows you to heal Maz, gives Feel No Pains, good OC, and they're good Hunter rig. Good to put them in the Hunter rig, hold that flank like we've talked about before. Pain Boss is underappreciated for 60 points, is great. If the Pain Boys is 60 points, I would look more often. But Pain Boy costs more than a War Boss. Get out of here.
That's crazy.
So we got Zagrot Wartsnaga because I want to keep the same mindset of you need to play the table edges and get up the table quickly. I normally would have put Zagrot on there because I don't like his scouting over maybe teleportation or infiltration. But you do have the potential to do it. There is 1 truck on the list if you choose to put him in the truck to do the infiltration for that with the Gretchen, because it's dedicated transport, he can now scout as well. And it keeps him more safe so you don't throw him away. He can also do secondaries with that truck once they disembark and do things. I think not throwing Zadrot away in the beginning, turn 1, is not the way to go. Wait for him to have the WAAAGH actually on his unit so he gains great mobility and then run up and tag an enemy unit that doesn't want to be tagged. Or if there's a big fight going on, look for the enemy character that is near that unit and then charge near the enemy character. That way, when he piles in, he has to charge into your Grot unit. So he's more of a flex for the fighting and for the holding the table edge, right? 2 Beast Snagger Boys, 1 for each character that go in the rig. The 1 truck, like I said, 2 Gretchen because we love our Gretchen. Then 2 big bricks of Squig Boys for the characters. And I think go ahead and just bring 1 3-man unit, let him run around, play a flank as well on his own. Maybe he follows up the Wart Snagger line. That way it's not a huge commitment. But 1 unit of 3 Squig Boys is still pretty ideal. Still very good at beating up other small units for that point value. And you're going to love having the Squig Bombs. Remember, you don't need to see anybody to throw Squig Bombs at them. Go ahead and throw Squig Bombs at them. Lone Ops hate to hear that. And then you have 2 units of Storm Boys because Storm Boys are ideal. If you can't pick Storm Boys, Bikers can work. Shock Jump Dragster can work. Solo Weird Boys can work. So, and those guys as their whole for scoring potential, that's what I see them for.
Yeah, I think we might have to revisit the Speed Wall because a lot of those units got decreases. We'll see what we can fit into this.
Dude,
now.
I did have a list and that were shown to me that people were running kill rigs, 2 kill rigs, and 2 to 3 buggies between Shock Jump Dragsters. So I had a list on there as well, but I wasn't confident enough to show it. But if you go into our Discord, the boss and a few other guys, Warboss Brandon, a few of our favorite lads are showing and what ideas they have for the buggies. And that's why I think Shock Jump Drags would be interesting too. I'm thinking about a green tide list. I can take 5x10 boys for 425, maybe 3 to 4 trucks, knobs, burner boys, looters, storm boys. Doable, man. So I have been trying to do that for a long time, and on the Discord, we've been going back and forth about that. Can we run green tide lists? You can run truck tide lists. That works in conjunction. You know, have a bunch of little small boy units, go around in trucks. It still feels like a green tide. As for foot slogging boys, I just can't see it working. You can make a skew enough list to go 3 and 2 maybe if you bring custom force fields, banners, maybe a pain boy because you have silly OC. But a lot of the units we see that are going to be hard matchups right now have blast. Like we said, Leagues of Voltan, Tyranids, Necrons don't necessarily have blast, but they have a stupid amount of volume between their immortal shots. I could go on and on about all the different units that have blast, why you don't want to bring just naked boy bricks.
Yeah, I think the thing with those kind of units, those kind of lists too, is you can hide 2 or 3 of those kind of units, but it's hard to hide 5 in a deployment zone. A lot of GW layouts are good with the angles they minimize, but you can still cut angles if you're trying to hide 50 guys behind your single deployment zone.
Yeah, exactly. I can do similar to this. I don't have an extra hunter rig or more Stig Hog boys. Yeah, there's just a archetype of people who are collecting this. You know what you have to fill that in, but this list still works quite well if you have other like a battle wagon, maybe some trucks. If you want, put another Beast Boss and Squigosaur on here to act as another T10 source of tension grabbing, stuff like that. If you do that, I would advise reconsidering the Edwapa Kill Choppa for him so that he's actually able to kill something. Because then he just kind of gets stuck in combat with a bunch of different monsters that I don't appreciate. So that's what I would advise for that. You know. And is there anything else we wanted to go over? Those were the 3 lists that I had. Oop, and then my naked thing. All right, so we'll close out here and give our closing thoughts and ideas as we come up to the 2-hour mark. So I'm just going to break it to you in reality, boys. I think our harder matchups got harder. You know, besides the Space Marines with their, you know, small unique list, CSM with their over-tuned list that they had prior, and Eldar with their kind of semi-broken and annoying rule interactions, now we have just pure raw power and data sheets and abilities that are going to be challenging to deal with. We're going to have to deal with, we'll just go off the bat right now. Tyrann is getting point decreases. They have Twin Link. They have blast weapons. They have a lot of monsters that are good for skirmishing. They have the ability to throw you back in your deployment zone, and they score a lot of fixed secondaries. You're going to have to think about that and tech for that as well based off your meta. A couple tools we talked about earlier. Next is Custodes. I think Gaz, for that reason alone, might become a super necessary tech piece because Gaz helps you punch through Custodes because there's almost no other way you're going to get through them. Of course, CP discipline for fight and death. Knobs are very important in that. And I can see the argument for why kill rigs might be interesting if in your meta, they do not have the grav tanks to just very reliably pop all your stuff. If they don't have grav tanks to pop your transports, tech more into kill rigs because then you'll be able to give yourself higher strength. Interesting maybe as a tank shock if you really have to. Decent OC, holding them in place kind of unit. Leagues of Voltan. Their lists are going to stay pretty ideally the same. There's not too many of them around, but they do have that weird toughness threshold. They do want to play the edge of the table, just like Astra Militarum, which is another one of our hard matchups. These are the matchups, just like the Vanguard Space Marine list, where you're going to want to play the edges of the table as an Orc player now. We know we own the middle of the table, just like Gaz would do, just like Maz would do. Now it's time to consider the edges of the table and quickly getting to them and up them so that our enemies cannot use them to take advantage of us and take better lines of sight and erode us at an uncontrollable rate of attrition. And then last but not least, our Necrons. Necrons have become very annoying with this Hypercrypt. At any point, they could just get nerfed, and Hypercrypt wouldn't be important. The Canoptic Court would be on the face, and the Canoptic Court is getting punched to death by Gaz and Lethal and Knobs. So I'm not worried about that either. But while you're teching and learning about them right now, Hypercrypt is going to be at every event, and really it's about knowing their rules and understanding that they're going to most likely pull the points away late game. So sometimes it's just about trying to out-primary them and dog them if you can. So. Are there any thoughts you want to say, Chris, on anything about that?
No, I think you hit it pretty much on the nail on the head. I think the key to all this is just learn your matchups.
Gas. No, I'm kidding. Unbridled Carnage and Gas. Oh, no. Okay,
I
no,
honestly don't think
no.
Gaz is. I almost, as someone who's gone against Orcs, they feel like a different army when Gaz is on the tabletop. There's
That's
the output potential is increased almost like twofold with his lethal 5s, crit 5s, craziness, and he's just flat 4 damage, which is just nice.
I killed 2 Katans in our matchup
in a single turn.
It was Beast Snagga Boys and Mazrog went crazy.
And so
Gaz did a little bit of damage as well. Gaz did a little.
I mean, Gaz.
Dude, I killed him to the wound, so it mattered. All right?
Yeah, you killed him to, and the fact that the turn he killed them, Gaz didn't throw a single punch. It was Maz throwing punches and Beast Boys, but they were affected by Gaz's aura.
I fell
that
back
was the reason.
with Gaz on purpose so I can reach more units with Makari's aura and just stand on that objective. Because like I said, Gaz a lot of the times just stands in the middle and bullies, and people don't go out to go get him. It really catches people off guard because they're like, how do I deal with this 2-up invuln? Do I really want to get stuck here with a guy that does 4 damage? Do I really want to get stuck here with a guy who's winning on almost everything on the game on 2s?
Literally.
Like, I don't know if I really want to deal with this.
He's strength 12?
He's strength, I think 14.
Oh, geez.
Plus
definitely
plus 1 to wound.
Is it plus 1 wound if he's only
plus
leading
1 to hit
unit?
and wound when he's leading a unit.
Okay. So you got to get the Mega Knobs out there.
Yeah. And you get the dev wounds from that. So that was really cool. The Beast Snagga Boys tore down the other Catan with the strat that I told you earlier. Flash Gits were a direct counter to his Immortals coming on and moving around the table. Leaving them in lanes where I knew he was going to want to interact with me meant that when they came on, I was dwindling them, and I picked up one of the units of the Immortal by the second time I overwatched it. Or the first, that was the second time I overwatched it. I picked up the units of Immortals that definitely mattered because their OC and their ability to move and shoot matters. I was constantly trying to find those guys and shoot them with my Flash Gits for that reason, because I was like, they're going to move later in the game and get in my way. So yeah, and that's something you have to keep in mind for the Necron. So it was really fun and I had a good time, but their rules, I wish more armies had those kind of rules so that it doesn't feel like they're playing a different game than you. David, if you press that. Epic challenge and precision. Screw him up though. Yeah, from Makari and Gaz. Yeah, well, that's up to you as a player to understand how that not happens, right? To understand what not to do about that. To look at, like we said earlier, what is Army's capabilities? If you see Gaunt's Ghosts have that sniper, you're like, oh well, I should maybe be a little aware that he might snipe Makari.
Hide him behind a wall.
Yeah, you can very much. And like we said, with Epic Challenge, you can hide him behind a wall because Epic Challenge requires direct line of sight to challenge that bully. So really you just need him to go off for the wall. Anything outside of that is an extra. Sometimes Gaz doesn't even kill stuff for me in games, or he kills something that's not even worth the points. A lot of layouts have Rune Box in the middle. Gaz dominates in there. Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy if you allow that. But they do have good runes now because of the GW terrain. So I know you hear a lot of things back and forth about Gaz. Just give him your own try. You know your own meta. You know, he makes our harder matchups much more winnable. And our old archetype still works, but I don't think they're going to help us in our bad matchups because they were already bad matchups and they just got stronger. So it's up to the Orc community to come up with new ways to play. I'm just going to advise infiltrating / scouting might be a mandatory, but it's also a premium. And 2, playing the flanks of the table might be very important. As for teleporting, getting there quickly with Death Killer Wartrike, because a lot of these gunline armies now know that they can reserve, come on, and automatically shoot you. And that feels very good to them, especially if they can infiltrate. So with that being said, I appreciate you Gits. There's a lot of information to get stuck in. Any of you guys that give us donations and memberships, I appreciate it. We got Snazzy Gaz. Whoa! And then we got, of course, I'm going to go over it again. Zach Shook. Appreciate you get. Always helpful. The Fighting Fedora. Make sure you guys collect any of those. Whoa, for the Fighting Fedoras. Wop. Woo! Let's go. Jay Hoon, of course, and then one of our most loyal and loving and generous supporters, Wicked Joe. Whoa! See you again in the Depticon, Wicked Joe. So for all you gets, if you come into Adepticon, if you haven't joined our Discord, join our Discord. I reply. If I get lost and busy, I'm sorry to some of you gets. It's a lot, but I'm getting better at it, I promise. But there's a lot of really smart, skilled players in there that can reply to your direct questions. We like everyone reviewing lists. I like to see your paint jobs because we do a community stream once a month. So be sure to be around. Be sure to be around for the rise of the green tide. And there's always one thing to keep in mind.
That rise almost scared me. That was like...
it-
That was pretty. It's pretty passionate right there.
Yeah, it was. It is passionate, just like the orcs are in gas. So there's one thing to keep in mind: is don't cross our wall because we knock your teeth out.
Right.
Whoa!